If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
Imagine this scenario. It's a Tuesday morning, no phone calls were made, no encrypted messages were sent, no one issued orders. Yet at nearly the same moment, a man in Pennsylvania packs a bomb into a storage unit. Another in New York watches the same propaganda clip for the 100th time and begins driving south. A third in North Carolina writes out his attack plan by hand. They don't know each other. They never spoke. They don't need to. The ideology is the command. The trigger event already fired weeks ago when a geopolitical flashpoint lit up the global jihadi network. Tonight, we break open the architecture behind jihadi terrorists in America, coordinated without coordination, and ask the hardest question in terrorism. How do you stop something with no leader? The primary enemy driving tonight's broadcast is ISIS. As far as the homeland is concerned, they've morphed into a decentralized ideological franchise that issues no direct orders because they're not required. ISIS has deliberately shifted from a command and control terror organization to a global propaganda engine that uses shared ideology, geopolitical trigger events, and timing cues distributed through encrypted apps and publications like Al-Naba to synchronize violence across borders without ever having to connect actors to each other. What they want is sustained psychological terror through unpredictable low-barrier attacks on American soft targets that exhaust law enforcement, paralyze community confidence, and signal that no corner of our country is safe, all without coordinating a single phone call. Welcome to Survival Dispatch News. It's April 9th, 2026. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by combat wounded Green Beret Randy Nance, 26-year CIA case officer Jeff MD, and 20-year U.S. Army Night Stalker Black Hawk pilot Jeff Nicholas. Bottom line up front, ISIS no longer directs attacks. It activates them through shared ideology, geopolitical triggers, and synchronized timing cues distributed to self-radicalize actors who need no orders to strike American soil simultaneously. ISIS-inspired plots and attacks have been surging on American soil, from the Bourbon Street massacre to the Gracie Mansion IED attempt to yesterday's guilty plea from a Pakistani national who plotted a mass shooting at a Brooklyn Jewish center. And law enforcement's traditional detect disrupt model is structurally mismatched against an enemy with no command architecture to infiltrate. So what we're covering tonight is how the decentralized attack model actually works, why pattern recognition breaks down when there's no central node to track, and what Americans can do when the threat has no leader to cut off. Going directly into segment number one, how ideology replaces orders in the decentralized jihadi model. ISIS functions today as an ideological operating system. It installs itself through propaganda, provides a shared targeting logic rooted in Islamic supremacist doctrine, and lets individual actors self-execute without ever receiving a direct command from anyone inside the organization. The Al-Naba newsletter, Telegram channels, and encrypted social platforms serve as the distributed command infrastructure with geopolitical trigger events like the Iran war, the Al-Aqsa closure, and anniversary dates functioning as activation signals that require no explicit instruction to interpret. When every actor in the network draws from the same ideological playbook and watches the same trigger events unfold, synchronization emerges naturally, and traditional law enforcement tools built around intercepting communications and infiltrating cells hit a structural wall against a network with no communication to intercept. This is why the old rules of counterterrorism no longer work. If you want real-time intel and early warnings on these decentralized threats instead of waiting for the next attack to hit the news, that's exactly what SDN Guardians is built for. Only 33 cents a day at survivaldispatch.news. So I see backstage Agent 00711. Good to see your avatar, Khalid.
You are looking good, man.
My favorite.
You've lost some weight, haven't you? You lost weight. That's what
I've lost weight. I've gotten a haircut.
That's awesome. I appreciate you joining us. So, per usual, going to Jeff MD right out of the gate. Jeff, at what point does a propaganda document like Al Naba, and I'm going to show some examples of it, cross from speech into an operational attack order? And does that line even matter anymore?
Well, it's really hard to say when it becomes an attack order. It only is an attack order to people who interpret it as an attack order. You can have an attack order that says, okay, if St. John's beats Yukon, go with the op. Well, it doesn't mean that St. John and Utah are part of a terrorist plot. You can use anything as a potential attack order. If it's purposeful and they do it that way, you got to prove it, and that's next to impossible. That means you have to get the person who issued the order to say, yes, it was an order to initiate an attack, and the person to receive it say, yes, I took that order and used it as sought as an order to attack. The only time you can really get them in trouble is if they're openly calling for acts of violence. Well, an attack order doesn't do that. An attack order is just a go order. It's not going to tell you what to go on or when to go or anything else, because you don't need to. You've already done that part. All you need to do is it's basically pushing the button.
Jeff, I've got a follow-up question right away. Is your mic a distance away from you?
Yeah, it's probably over there.
There you go. That sounds way better.
Okay. Yeah, I moved it out of the way.
All good. So when you were running operations at the CIA, what did a command and control network look like versus what we're seeing now? Why does the difference break the old disruption model?
Well, I'm not an expert on terrorist command and control networks because I didn't work directly on counterterrorism that much. I was more of a proliferation guy. But, a command and control network is you got to have a leader, you got to have minions, and you have to have a secure way to contact those minions. And ideally, it needs to be two-way. So they can ask you questions and you can answer it. Or if you give an order and they're unclear, they can go back to you and say, can you please clarify that? If you just give an order, you run or a message or a signal, you run the risk that they miss it. And that stuff happens all the time. In the old days, they used to put, article in or a classified ad. Well, if the person who's supposed to get it doesn't see it, or they're out of town, or they didn't look at the newspaper that day, you think they're going to do something and they're not. So you probably would want to send a message, and then you solicit from them a confirmation message, just basically saying, yeah, gotcha, over, message received. And we do that in radio all the time. You send you contact troops in the field over a radio, and you don't just give them the orders and hang up. You need them to confirm that they received it. And it's no different in a terrorist network. Now, if you have a sleeper cell that's already has a target and they've already been prepped and they already have everything, and all you're basically saying is, operation is a go, then, and actually that did happen on 9/11 because the terrorists actually called the wrong number in Atlanta, woke some poor guy up at like 2 a.m. and all they said was, the operation is a go, the operation is a go, and they hung up. They didn't know they gave it to the wrong guy. I think they did later because they ended up calling the right guy. But he got the message on his answering machine, and then he didn't think anything of it until 9/11 happened. And then he called the cops. Cops called the FBI. They ran the numbers. It was a number up in Minneapolis. And it turned out that they had the number that called him immediately turned around and called another number. It was almost identical to his, but the last two numbers were transposed. So they fat fingered it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've heard that one. Jeff, Number 2, Jeff 1, Jeff 2. That's the only way I can keep this straight, Jeff.
One thing.
How does ISIS use geopolitical trigger events as activation signals now, without ever publishing explicit instructions to attack, Jeff?
Well, I think, I don't really know how to answer that question, to be honest with you. How do they use geopolitical situations? Obviously, they use it for propaganda. They use it to try to make people win people to their side. And in the midst of talking about that, they could send signals to their agents.
Let me just throw this out there. 25th anniversary of 9/11, for example, as a anniversary of a geopolitical event.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you did planning and things like that, I mean, you'd be able to coordinate and say, hey, listen, you talked about not having a direct command and control, and ideology and everything else would be similar. You could just tell everybody, do your best to do your worst on this date, right? So I think the enemy is a lot smarter than we give them credit for, and I think that we're vastly ill prepared for when they can signal each other. At the end of the day, they're trying to use everything in their ability, whether it's a geopolitical event, just the current news cycle with what's going on. They're already working to try to make people sound as if Iran is beating us almost, or we're making a big mistake. So I just think that's. They use anything and everything to try to sway people to their side, and then also they can use these things for trigger events within their own, philosophies and their own hierarchy. But we were taught how to communicate via different methods so that we could let people know what was going on, and they could communicate back with us in a very
unassuming
manner.
Yeah, and for those of you who are not familiar with Jeff, is a good friend of mine, and he was in Mogadishu when the Black Hawk went down. He was a Black Hawk pilot. Thankfully, it wasn't his Black Hawk. But with that being said, Randy, coming to you next. How does the absence of communication between these bad actors make them even more dangerous than coordinated cells? I don't think they're less dangerous. I think they're more dangerous.
Well, it basically makes them like a fire and forget missile. All you have to do is just let it go. You don't even have to dial it in yet. You just let it go. It goes out there and it waits for whatever moment, whatever geopolitical event, whatever message, whatever they're waiting for. And they know what that is. As Jeff said, they've already got all this worked out. All they're waiting for is the signal. When they get the signal, then they go. Not many people reply back, as we've mentioned previously on the show the last couple of weeks, because when somebody replies back, then you can get that location. So today's time, these guys aren't going to reply back because they just receive the message. It could be in the classified ads for all we know. There's really so many different ways. There's no telling. But, the fact is they're autonomous. They don't have to have someone tell them what to do. I mean, let's just go back to World War II. And the only reason we made it off the beach is because Hitler was taking a nap. And they were too afraid to wake him up and disturb him in the middle of his nap because there was, like 6 Panzer divisions that weren't very far off, that had they went out and helped out on the beach, we might have never even took that ground on the beach. What you have to do initially so that you can get off the beach and then go inland. And so, that's how bad it was for them. Hitler had to make all the decisions at this point. And because he was asleep, the generals on the ground couldn't say, hey, go. So there was a disconnect there. These guys, like I said, are fire and forget missiles. They're out there. And then whatever the message or whatever signal they're supposed to get, then they just go in and do in action whatever they're supposed to do. So that's what makes them so dangerous.
When you and Jeff both mentioned the classified ads aspect, you both tweaked me on Mel Gibson conspiracy theory. I think it was like 1997-ish time frame or something like that. Jerry was this. So, Khalid, I mean, you're a preeminent expert on the behavior of radicalized parties. Is there a threshold of radicalization where an actor becomes functionally activated, ready to move? And can that threshold be measured or detected from the outside, like by agencies?
Well, it's in today's day and age, it's almost impossible to detect it because the speed at which radicalization is happening with lone wolves and the way ISIS is operating now, detecting them is very difficult, especially when you look at their communication methods. I mean, they're using emojis to send out messages that no one can pick up, because if you're looking for language, it's going to get picked off. But when you're using emojis, they can mean anything, and they only mean something to the person who's receiving them. The playbook on counterterrorism has changed so much in the past couple of years. It's become almost impossible to find these guys because they're not using regular communication systems anymore.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Coming back to Jeff MD, what does the intelligence picture look like, Jeff, when there's no financial transactions, there's no phone calls, there's no meetings? It's just a guy watching videos alone by himself and reading his Al Nabab, publication.
It's very difficult to figure these things out. Like Khalid said, they use emojis, but they can also use gaming. You get an online game, and the people in the game, they have their handles, their names, and you can communicate with them. And if I'm playing a game and I've got a handle, and then my boss gets in the game and I recognize his handle, and then he can give me a message in the game. And is it stealth? No, because anybody else in the game can see the message too, but they got to know what they're looking at. It looks like two gamers talking, or it doesn't even have to be a talk. It could be an emoji. He could give a smiley face emoji to him, and that means do it. Those things are extremely difficult to figure out because even if you're on to player number one, there might be 40, 50 different people in and out of those games. And if he plays it every day and there's different people in it, there might be hundreds of people in and out of that game in a week. And you're supposed to figure out which one of those 100 is his boss. If any of the 100 is his boss, now multiply that by, say, I don't know, maybe he's got 10 different games that he plays. It's a very, very, very difficult task. Even if you have, AI and all this other stuff, you got to have a starting point. And that's the hard part. You don't know who the guy is. And even if you know who he is, you can't figure out how he's communicating with people.
It's like I frequently say, it's like looking for a needle in a stack of needles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost an impossible task. So Jeff Nicholas, I don't know that anybody could really define when a decentralized model, becomes more effective or more dangerous than a centrally directed network. But I'm of the mindset now that we've crossed that threshold. We've crossed that line because we have so many people we let into the country during the Biden installation. We have so many people that were radicalized before they came in, so many people that have been radicalized, that have never been anywhere outside of the world, but they're disaffected for whatever reason. I mean, if there's no leaders to hunt, and there's no group of people where you can kick them off of a platform, and like Jeff said, you don't even know who to listen in on. Again, this is a loaded question. I don't know if you have any ideas, because I don't have any ideas, to be quite frank. How do you combat that, Jeff? How do you combat against this ideology that's completely under the radar as far as their actions and planned actions are concerned?
Yeah, like I said, I've always said we've been infiltrated, not invaded. And not only do we have the hundreds of thousands of these individuals in this nation, they've been aided and abetted by people within our government. So what kind of intel are they getting as well, and how are they covering for these guys? So it's not only knowing them, but how are they being aided from people who are within our government that are sleepers that haven't been vetted out. So how do you check that? Because like everybody says, it's especially if they're decentralized, you still have to find these people. You have to look for certain behaviors. They say you're not allowed to. What do they call that when
Profile.
you profile people? Well, you
Yeah.
better start profiling, and you better start looking at like, hey, this guy's going to the range an awful lot. Oh, this guy is on, doing a lot of videos, or this guy's driving around. You're going to have to do a lot of these different things. Oh, he's bought 20 guns in the last 2 months. All this kind of stuff. The problem is, I don't think we have the bandwidth in order to cover all that. And I think as a nation, if we get past the current situation in the Middle East, which I think we will, we have to, at some point, we'll be able to focus in. And the thing is, do we have enough? The military is going to have to be used. We don't have enough civilian forces to do this. We basically have an army inside of our nation that could be ready to go at any 1 minute. And here's the other thing. Instead of, we used to talk about, time and event-driven exercises. Well, if maybe one cell's cue is if, I'll just throw a name out. The so-and-so city's water plant blows up tomorrow. Your job is next. Your job is next. Could be a chain reaction, And if this hasn't gone off by this date, you're to spring into action. That's how easy it is for them to do that. It's like Tom Ridge said it when he first became the first DHS. We have to be right every time, and they only have to be right once. So,
Yeah, that's
near impossible.
That's a killer quote. So let me ask you this, Jeff. Do you reckon that they'll use this scenario, this thing that we're trying to contend with, to justify 15-minute cities and social credit scores as far as who can go in and out of these 15-minute cities? Those sort of things.
I don't think that's going to. Listen, we're heading in a bad direction anyway. You and I have talked about the reason behind that. It's pretty much in the Bible. We can tell where humanity's going. We're just trying to delay it, and maybe give time for people to get right with God. In my opinion, but I don't think that's a good argument, because the more you pack people in one area, the easier the targets. The more you spread out, the harder the target. Right.
That's a great counter, Jeff. I've never heard anybody make that counter before on 15-minute cities. You have a captive audience, essentially, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're a target-rich environment. It's just like an army chow line. You don't stand shoulder to shoulder. Everybody was like, 5 meters apart or something like that. If you ever had to heat out in the field, and in case someone threw a grenade or a mortar hit, you don't have everybody in one spot. So,
yeah, that's, pretty brilliant. For those of you who don't know what Night Stalkers are, by the way, Jeff was one of like Randy and Mike Glover's favorite people. They fly with night vision, and they go into the worst places and drop off guys like Randy and Mike, and then they come back and pick them up. So incredibly difficult.
Well, I think this is not news. I'm not letting anything out of the bag, but they were instrumental in getting that pilot out of Iran the other day, and also a couple raids, the Maduro raids and all that. We had the CW5 getting the Medal of Honor for his actions. Boy, that guy did a great job. So I'm the guy that snuck in the door. Those guys are awesome.
Yeah, Jeff did not sneak in the door. You don't get to become a chief warrant officer level 4 by sneaking in the door. Khalid, Randy, I'm going to open the next segment with you. And Khalid, I just have a quick question. Let me get you over on the other stage here, right there. This is the cover of a recent issue of Al. Is it Nababa? Is that how it's pronounced, Khalid?
It's Al Nabab.
Go ahead and just explain this. This is dead tree format, like it's a paper format plus digital, correct?
Yep. If you look at the way terrorism has expanded ever since, I think it was 2015, 16, when ISKP became one of the leading propaganda agencies of the global terrorism war. You saw Al Qaeda come out with magazines, Inspire, which were literally like what you were buying in bookstores, and they had bomb making methods in there. They had attack plans in there. The way terrorism has expanded over the past, I'd say probably the past 8 years, it's become something where our intelligence agencies still don't understand how to react. And the problem is when you are dealing with the last point in what happens, which is the terrorist attack, you don't understand how you got there. And what we do at Command 11 is we understand the steps well beforehand, how the signaling is done, how the language is used, what kind of code books are being made. Just the other day, we're going to release this in the next couple of days on our website. We got a drone manual from the Ukraine that's written in Russian that has tactics and has methodologies in it for how you can use a commercial drone as a weapon. And it's got pictures, it's got actual tactics. It is probably one of the most well-written manuals I've seen in a long time. And this is written by somebody who's on the battlefield in Ukraine, again, using them against Russia. The way these things are coming out now, people are now working in a collaborative manner to help educate one another on how to fight better. And the targets are being identified in a manner of how much psychological damage you can deliver. It's not about just body counts anymore. It's about how much psychological damage you can deliver. Al Nayab, Inspire, the Telegram channels, Roboblocks, the video game, some of the others, Call of Duty. There's so many different methods they're using to communicate with each other and train. Chris, they're actually using Call of Duty to train on battlefield tactics. They find a target and they train on Call of Duty so they can get someone who's never fought before to a level where they can understand how to carry out an attack. Terrorism has completely changed now.
Yeah, that's crazy. I want to say thank you to Samuel Turner for the $20 tip. And Khalid, do me a favor, next go around, come back to this question if you could. I want to get us into segment number 2, but if you could come back to that comment next loop around for you, I'd appreciate it. All right, so let's pivot now into segment number 2. And like I said, Brandy, I'm going to open up with you. And it's titled, Why Law Enforcement's Detect Disrupt Model is Structurally Mismatched. The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force model was built to infiltrate networks, intercept communications, and identify the connective tissue between actors, none of which exists in a leaderless jihadi environment where every actor self-radicalizes in isolation and makes independent decisions with no network to map. The ISIS-inspired incidents that have hit American soil in recent months, Pakistani national pleading guilty yesterday to planning a Brooklyn Jewish Center massacre, 2 Pennsylvania teens indicted this week for the TATP bomb attacks outside Gracie Mansion, and the Bourbon Street massacre New Year's Day, almost 2 years ago now. They share no operational thread, only an ideological one that law enforcement can't surveil. Disrupting decentralized attacks requires a community-level detection model, not just a federal intelligence model, because the only people who consistently see behavioral pre-attack indicators are family members, neighbors, and local communities who need the training and confidence to report what they observe. This is exactly why the FBI's old playbook keeps failing. If you want real-time warnings and community-level insights that actually match how these decentralized threats operate instead of waiting for the next attack, that's exactly why I built the Survival Dispatch News Guardians. It's 33 cents a day at survivaldispatch.news. So with that being said, Randy, and coming to you first, so the FBI is claiming that they disrupted 15, jihadi plotters last year. I don't know if you've had a chance to look into them at all. And I was going to ask you, do you know how many of those came from community tips versus federal intelligence collection? And at the end of the day, I'll tell you straight up, the vast majority came from community tips, and it wasn't because they had somebody under surveillance. So what do you make of that? What do you make of, okay, they're proud that they got 15. I'm happy they got 15. I think there's a lot more out there, but they all came through tips essentially, as opposed to any, sophisticated intelligence model.
Well, it's because, like I said, they're not doing their job. That's what that means. That's exactly what it means. Or they're doing something else. Something else is their job that we don't know about. And then I'll just go off of, what's Patel done since he's been in? Nothing. And then I go, and 15. Woo, 15. Good job. We know over 200,000 ISRs, and there's probably 1 million if there's 200,000. 15, well, hey, I don't even know if we could call that a good start yet. But, hey, if they want to tout their horn on that, I'm just going to go off of, let's just look at what their history's been since, 2020, we'll say. Whether, the operations they tried to pull on January 6th. They weren't able to pull that off. They got some of it, but they didn't get the whole thing. The Governor Whitmer kidnapping attempt, that was all them. So these are things that the FBI is doing. And then, of course, as we know, for the longest time, and it's probably still to this day, you and me are the real threats here.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I was going to say, does anybody on the panel want to comment on how much time the FBI's wasted on middle-aged white guys being the number one threat, when that's clearly not the case?
Hey,
Jeff,
look
you want to run with that? Go ahead.
What's happening in Australia? They're arresting their national war heroes from the Iraq War. They just arrested one of the guys that won the Victoria Cross on an airplane with war crimes from years ago. They've done that to like 5 or 6 people over there now.
Expand on that, Jeff, please.
Yeah, they were war heroes that came back, because I flew some of those guys around after I retired. When we were going out to certain areas and some of those guys needed rides, we'd give them rides. They were out there shoulder to shoulder with American troops. These guys are getting arrested for war crimes now, and they're some of the most highly decorated soldiers and veterans in the Australian populace.
Where did that come from, though? Where's this whole war crimes thing come from?
Actions against the Muslims, I guess, or the people. So the idea here is that these guys were awarded the nation's highest honors, and now they're being tried because it's a woke DEI government.
What I read, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, that guy that you mentioned, who's probably one of the most highly decorated soldiers ever in Australia's history, was that there were complaints made against him by the bad guys in Afghanistan who said he did X, Y, and Z, and now they're going to dredge that up all these years later. And
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't award the guy one day, and then all of a sudden he's public enemy number one the next. With the change in leadership, it's just like within our nation. They say if we win the midterms, we're going to be impeach Trump. If you voted for Trump, we're coming after you. Since when is that part of the psyche of this country? We've been hijacked. And, you look at all these different, how many of these blue states and blue mayors are helping the terrorist network? Look at Somalians. You want to see my blood boil? Is watch Somalians in the street of, they drug American soldiers in the streets of Mogadishu, and now they're dragging a reporter in his own vehicle, and they got in it and drug him because his hand was locked into the handle. That sent me through the friggin' roof. They're here in this country, and Tim Walz pledges allegiance to the Somalis. Are you kidding me? This is how insane our world has become. So people say, well, that would never happen. Well, it's happening now, ladies and gentlemen. It's right here in the front porch.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Jeff MD, before I ask the question, do you want to expand on this Australian guy a little bit?
Yeah, the guy in question was the most highly decorated person alive in Australia. They accused him of killing 4 or 5 civilians in a firefight. When you're in the middle of a firefight, Randy I would hope, can explain this much better than me. You really don't have time to say, wait a minute, is that a civilian or is that a civilian with an AK-47? No, I mean,
No.
someone's lighting you up from a building, you unload on that building.
No, let me just expound on that even more, right? In Somalia, we killed over 1,000 Somalis. What were those jackheads doing? They were shooting RPGs standing behind women and children. Guess who's going to die? Everybody, because we would not have a force left over. I'm kind of high siding here. So that's how they value life. And we try to put our morals and our dogma on them, and they could give a rat's ass who lives or dies. They'll throw women and children under the bus all day long. If people, these women in this country that complain about us, let them go live overseas somewhere, and within 24 hours, they'll be crying to come back. They're not even considered citizens. They can't own property. They can't vote. They don't have a say. If they say anything, they get slapped around. They have no idea what life is like outside of this country. A bunch of knuckleheads.
Yeah, that's being played about it for sure. So Jeff MD, when a plotter radicalizes with the zero organizational contact, and the bulk of these, 15 that the FBI supposedly disrupted, I know you've touched on this before, but what are the behavioral indicators that community members can pick up on based on the fact that law enforcement, as everybody stated, is spread way too thin to find these needles?
Well, it's behavioral changes. If they're a Christian who converts, they'll start dressing like a Muslim Middle Eastern attire. They may grow a beard out. They may, you'll see it. They may wear, the clothing and their behavior. And if they're praying, and it's like he was a good Catholic boy a month ago, and now he's praying to Mecca 5 times a day. That's why it doesn't mean he's radical, but it means something. But then they also change their behavior in a lot of other ways. If they were outgoing, they become more inward because they don't like associating with people who they now consider to be infidels. You might have had a kid in your neighborhood. He may be a Muslim, nice kid, but if he radicalizes, he's probably not going to be talking to the infidels much anymore. He's not going to be. You're going to see a behavioral change. It'll get darker. He may get more serious. He may get more argumentative, because it's almost like they have to prove their bona fides to themselves, because they don't, if they're self-radicalized or if they've been radicalized online, they almost need to reaffirm their own faith to themselves. They become uber pious. You're on mute, Chris.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
We got Chris this time.
God darn, Amazon guy always comes.
Blame Amazon. Get that. What's my excuse? I have dogs. I have a clock ticking in the background.
The pit bull alarm system goes off. I despise Amazon these days. They could come any other time of the dang day, but they got to come when I'm live on the air. It actually really does seriously piss me off. It's not even funny to me. So Randy, coming back to you, and then Cleet, I got 2 questions for you. So you're going to have the stage for a minute. How does this Iran conflict and everything else that's going on in the Middle East, with all of these other conflicts, related conflicts, do you reckon that this has changed the tempo of lone wolves activating here domestically? Like, do you think it's taking things up a notch as far as, let's say, grievances are concerned?
I would have to say it has, because you look at now, even if you look at any social media, you see people attacking each other over this whole thing because, and 99% of them don't even know what they're talking about. That's the sad part about it. But anything, as we just look back in history, certainly recent history, anything that gets the public all riled up like this, and we have several things doing that at once right now, like multiple ones, it always brings out someone that thinks, I'm going to go do something about it. And that's even here in America. We've had a few of those, not quite like everywhere else. But, then we look at how many people came in just during the Biden years, and you have to, as we always go, it's just a math thing, which is numbers, right? It's an impossibility that something isn't going to happen, whether it be sales, lone wolves, or both. They're all here. And of course, if it's those folks, it'd be no different than if we were in another country and that country was attacking America and beating it down at the moment. We wouldn't be happy about that. And we might be looking for some retribution or, to make a statement for the United States anyway. But, I would say yes, because of how, I just say how dialed up they have the public right now. And it doesn't matter which country, the last several years, they've just been turning it up slower and slower, just like I think Jeff's mentioned once or twice, but about the old frog in the pot. How do you get them? You slowly turn up the heat, because if you throw a frog in the hot water, it's just going to hop out. But when you turn up that heat, it doesn't realize what's happening. And I think that's what we're watching. And as we mentioned earlier, I'll just caveat or just continue a little more here. When we talked about the Australian guys and them going after the heroes, well, I wouldn't doubt at some point if they can flip the switch here, they would do the same thing. And the reason is because if you're going to tear down a country's culture, right? If you want to break them all the way down, you have to also do their culture. And some of that is going to be stripping their heroes of everything and turning them into the bad guys, because that's what you do. It's no different than what we've seen Hollywood do with all the fictional heroes that we have, whether it be Superman, Batman, all of them basically. You look at what they've done the last 10 years with the movies on those. I don't even watch them anymore because it's ridiculous. It's the worst stuff they've ever put out, but they still just keep pumping it out. And it's because they're dialing the public up, and it's for this reason.
You're not suggesting these pencil neck Spider-Man, Superman, that they're not up to the task. I mean, you're not suggesting that, are you?
Well, of course they are if they're in a movie. But unfortunately, real life isn't a movie. It can be turned into a movie, but it's not a movie. So those fictional characters aren't going to help us. But my point is, that's why they did that. It's why all the statues and everything else had to go down, because they were slowly tearing down the culture of the United States of America, as it's always been in a constitutional republic, a Christian nation.
Yeah, true story. So, Khalid, I'm going to put Samuel's question back up. Then I have another one that's on topic for the second segment. If you could address this, I'd appreciate it.
Well, beating Iran is going to be a very difficult thing, because as long as you've got, we've got peace negotiations happening in Pakistan starting tomorrow. JD Vance is in the country. And getting negotiations to actually work is an impossibility. The past couple of days, we've seen the ceasefires break already. So we don't even know if Iran is going. And the conversations I've had thus far with people on both sides of the table, a lot of people are not really hopeful of the negotiations going well. I don't even think Iran's going to sit down at the table come tomorrow. And that's something that the IRGC's leadership has been saying since they got to Pakistan. Beating Iran and how it's going to affect sleeper cells, it doesn't matter. The sleeper cells have been given a list of conditions, and as those conditions are fulfilled, they will activate based on those conditions. So it doesn't matter if you beat Iran or not. If those conditions are fulfilled, then they are going to carry out their attacks. Right now, we're at condition 3 on a list of 10 that we know of. And if they actually roll through the into number 8, then I think things are going to get very bad. I don't see a lot of positive right now. I do think that right now what the U.S. is doing is they're buying time. There's 50,000 U.S. troops in the Middle East right now. There's more troops moving in. There's a lot of weaponry moving into the Middle East right now. It's obvious that there's going to be a ground invasion into Iran. I don't see things getting better. I think we've seen a lull for a second, and what Iran has done in the last 24 hours, announcing that they'll only let 15 ships per day through the Strait of Hormuz, the $1 a barrel charge that they're putting on every ship that's going through. There's nothing positive that's going to happen here. Winning this war, I don't think there is such a thing as winning, because to win, you would have to wipe Iran off the map. And I don't know if anyone's ready for that step to happen. We do know the White House did have conversation about using a certain level of nuclear weapons inside of Iran, but that discussion was scuttled very quickly.
All right, so great job answering that, Khalid. So back to segment number 2 here. What are joint terrorism task forces specifically designed to do, and where does that capability end when the threat has no network architecture, Khalid?
Well, thus far, from what I've seen from the joint terrorism task forces in the U.S., they're all sitting around and having conversations about what they think they should do and not knowing what they should actually do. Because, Chris, the problem with your joint terrorism task force is you are dealing with a playbook that was written in the early 2000s, and that playbook doesn't work anymore. And trying to find terrorists
it didn't end, Khalid. It didn't end, but
well, it didn't then either. Well, no, Randy, it did work then, but you didn't have the political will at that time. I mean, bin Laden could have been taken out during the Clinton administration, but Clinton didn't have the political will to go ahead and issue that order. Right now, the problem is that you're fighting an enemy that you can't see. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2, and Chris, you've read the counterterrorism blueprint that we've given.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that the U.S. law enforcement doesn't even understand in that counterterrorism assessment. I've said it to a lot of people. The basic feedback I'm getting is that we didn't even know half of what you've written. And to think that you're part of law enforcement or the intelligence services and you don't know half of what we put as a private organization into how terrorists operate, what are you doing? The question for me is, what are you doing if you don't know what we know? Because when you start talking about it from the level that we see it, counterterrorism is a proactive activity. It's not a reactive activity. And joint terrorism task forces are all reactive. They're not proactive. And as long as you stay reactive, you are acting on things that have already happened. That doesn't help you in stopping the threat. That only helps you in, well, maybe next time it might be the same way, and it never is next time. So my problem with joint terrorism task forces is that you're not fighting a war against terrorism. You're reacting to what happens.
But they were on the radar, Clete. Don't forget.
Yeah, Chris, the problem is the radar that you're using is broken. I mean, you're looking for things that don't exist anymore. There are no conversations happening. There are no people getting together and having meetings. You have nobody to track. There's no social media that they're using. There's no telephones they're using. How are you actually putting them on a radar? Is the FBI the lead part of the Joint Terrorism Task Force in the U.S. is the FBI, and the FBI is famous for entrapment. They're not famous for investigating and catching people, and that's the problem. You need a team of people that actually know how to fight a war against terrorists, and your problem is that you're not listening to the people that actually know how to do it.
Yes.
In reality, they just put that there so they have somebody to fire when something happens, right?
Yeah, I mean
that's
Randy,
what they're there for.
Just a point. I mean, right now the list that we've gotten from the White House, Tulsi Gabbard's on her way out, Kash Patel's on his way out. The level of people that are being removed that should have, Kash Patel shouldn't have been part of the government to begin, part of the administration to begin with. Tulsi is someone who knows terrorism, and you're not even using her because she doesn't agree with you politically. And when you start putting political objectives over security objectives, you've already lost the war.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, true story, true story. So, Jeff MD, circling back to you here, I'm curious of your thoughts on the guilty plea from this Pakistani national who planned the Brooklyn Jewish Center attack. I mean, I was going to ask you, does it tell us anything? But I would say the biggest thing it teaches us is how condensed the timeline is. It's a good example of what Khalid's been hammering on for months now.
Yeah, if there's a self-radicalized guy, he can decide he's going to do it one day and do it that afternoon. If he's got, he's got guns in his closet. It can be very condensed. I mean, we're not talking the traditional spot, assess, recruit kind of thing, like you do with spies. You can send a message out and, 100,000 people hear it. And if one of them self-radicalizes, your message has been successful because it costs you nothing. If you're putting it out over the internet or you're putting it out through an online magazine, the cost of that is pennies, especially pennies per eyeball. So it can be very, very condensed. And the other thing is, if you put it out through, a Bob or an Inspire or something, there's no feedback loop there. They don't know how many people are getting the message or not. So it's really kind of hard for them to determine if it's successful marketing until there is an attack. And then it comes back that the attacker was radicalized through that site. But to them, it's just broadcasting. It's like a radio station. You have no way of guaranteeing that anyone's going to listen to your program, but you put it out there, and then maybe through word of mouth or something like that, you find out people were. But from the terrorist standpoint, you find out when something gets blown up or there's a lone wolf attack. So it's very, very difficult to get to the bottom of, because it's not a physical network you're trying to identify and infiltrate. They're lone wolves. Man, that's like so hard to do. And the Bureau's success is finding people, disenfranchised kids online, and then the FBI radicalizes them and convinces them to go blow something up and then sell some phony explosives and then arrest them. The big question is, would the kid have done anything had the FBI not radicalized them?
Right.
How is that not entrapment? It's like the Gretchen Whitmer Fednapping case. There are more FBI agents involved than criminals.
Did Khalid, refresh my memory, was it inside of 30 days that some people are becoming radicalized from the time they show an interest to the time they attack?
Well, let me give you two examples. The New Orleans attacker was radicalized within 25 days. From the point where he was contacted to the point where he carried out the attack in New Orleans was 25 days. The Palm Beach attack on the fertility clinic, the cycle on that was 15 days. You are now radicalizing people anywhere from 2 weeks to 45 days from the time they are first spoken to when they carry out the attack. How do you fight that?
I don't know. That's incredibly fast.
Well, you can thank our media for some of that, because like I said, they've already got people at a favorite pitch. And you look at some of these liberals, how disturbed they already are. You know how easy it is? That person's ripe for it.
True. Jeff Nicholas, you touch a lot of law enforcement agencies at various levels. And I'm not asking you to speak out of school or anything like that, but do you reckon any of those local police departments are structurally equipped, to be on the front line? It's like the frontline detection layer for this leaderless jihad? Or is that asking something of these smaller agencies that they were never built to do, was never intended to be done? I'm sure you've got all kinds of rosy information for us here.
Well, I would call it the latter. They don't have any depth. They can barely man. If you look at what's going on in the country, I just say it's too stupid to be stupid. We've made the police the bad people. They can barely man the shifts that they have. Do you honestly think that they're doing any intel work? There are some departments that have officers that liaise into terrorists and gang networks and all that kind of stuff. but that's few and far between. We don't have the assets. We don't have the intel. I don't think we have the human intelligence embedded. I hope that we have some for some of the more major groups, but yeah, I think as a nation we're vastly underprepared. I think we're really asleep at the wheel in many ways. I think most Americans are asleep at the wheel. If we were smart, we would demand action. I think we have been demoralized. We've been dumbed down. We've been divided. I mean, the D words can be just thrown out here left and right. So at the end of the day, brother, we're not prepared in any way, shape, or form to any depth.
Yeah, I knew that was the answer, and it's stark, definitely. So, Randy, coming back to you, let's go down to like the community level. We've touched on this a few times. What would a properly designed community level early warning system actually look like? And are you aware of anything like this that exists in any American cities these days? And I don't mean something that is, necessarily funded, designed, and operated by law enforcement. I'm talking at the citizen level.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, used to, and certainly I think in the 70s and 80s, it was more famous that, where some cities, and I don't know if it was Philadelphia, one of the major cities had a serious amount of crime, started the neighborhood watch. And I'm just going to go off of the mold they went by, because for a period of time there, it was very successful. And they cleaned their streets up for a period of time. But it also takes people to be involved. It takes organization. It takes leadership. And it takes people giving up their time, because nothing's going to get done if no one's there or don't. But, basically it would look like the neighborhood watch. And no, law enforcement can't be involved because they don't have the bandwidth, one, and it's not their responsibility. And as we know right now, I'm certain when I was on an ambulance back in the day, in the late 80s and early 90s, the response times were not 8 minutes. That's forever and time ago, as we know. It was a lot quicker back then. But today we're at 8 minutes or longer, depending on what part of the city you're going to be in. So it really, in my opinion, comes down, it's responsible of the citizens, right? It's our community. Well, first, it's our house. It's our street. It's our neighborhood. It's our community. It's our city. If we're not going to take care of it, who is? Y'all really think that everybody else is just going to do it for us? That's not going to happen. But you would definitely have something like the neighborhood watch, where, a certain amount of the residents need to volunteer and make shifts. Those people back then, they had little vests. I don't know if they had a full uniform, but they definitely had a vest, a hat, had flashlights. And then they had shifts that they all took turns walking around, keeping an eye on everybody else's stuff. And it's all y'all's because it's your neighborhood. And that's, we could go in and probably hours of this stuff, but that's really what it was. You're going to need some leadership. You're going to need some people in your neighborhood to volunteer their time. And you're going to put together a program on how you're going to protect yourself in your neighborhood, even just keeping an eye on things and being able to call 911 when you see something suspicious or a crime actually taking place.
Yeah, I would say, based on the number of incidents of, Middle Eastern military-aged males who've been casing communities across the country, including our own here, that you've got to have somebody kind of at the entrance to your community, and multiple entrances if that's the case. And then you got to have a plan, though. Like, just because you see them coming, what's that mean you're going to do?
Yeah, you can't just be at the entrances either. You've got to have a little roaming patrol type of thing.
Exactly.
So,
and well, Randy, I mean, give me your thoughts from Iraq as far as like staggering vehicles. Obviously, we're not going to, as homeowners, we're not going to pick up, concrete barriers and set them up so people have to zigzag to get into our community. But you can do it easy enough with vehicles, right?
And all kinds of stuff. Garbage, rocks, steep tree stumps. You know, as I mentioned, the night I got injured, what I was doing at the exact moment that it happened is I had noticed, now we were coming into a neighborhood that was very, very, very bad. We had 23 bad guys on the tip, which is a huge package. And the conventional forces had fenced this whole neighborhood in. That's how bad it was. And it was right next to Sadr City, right outside Baghdad. And it's in a Mahalia named Baghdad Jadida. But regardless, I look over and, you know, I know we're coming back in 48 to 72 hours to come hit this place. So the reason we're coming in is because the conventional forces had just switched out. And now the new guys didn't know their way around, didn't know who the bad guys were. And we had missed a high value target like 2 or 3 weeks before that. And we did not catch back up and kill that guy until 2017. So 10 years it took us to catch back up to that guy that I was going after the night that I got hit. But to the point, I look over and to my left and I see a roadblock. And as you mentioned, part of it was an old wrecked out car. There was some rocks and rubble. There wasn't a tree stump, but there was just all kinds of stuff where they had completely made a roadblock. And so I was writing down the map when that happened. And so you can do anything. You know, you're not going to strict up some stringy little fence and stop vehicles, but there's plenty of stuff in your neighborhood. And certainly if things get bad enough, there'll be some rubble around too. So fill up trash cans. You can fill up a trash can. Somebody just said, but yeah, you can fill those things up and put some weight to them. Heck, at that point, it might not even matter. You might cruise around and grab some of the orange ones that are at construction sites on the road because they won't be working on those anymore.
Yeah, true story. All right. Well, let's go into the third and final segment here. Countermeasures, escalation indicators, and what Americans can do right now. The decentralized Jihadi model is resilient because cutting off any single node, arresting one plotter, shutting down one Telegram channel, killing one senior ISIS figure does not degrade the network because the network is the ideology itself, which is already distributed inside the heads of self-radicalized individuals across the country. Escalation indicators to watch right now include increased frequency of ISIS publications calling for attacks on specific American target types, geopolitical flashpoints that generate moral outrage in radicalized communities, anniversary dates with significant symbolic, element of Islam to it, like September 11th, for example, and any pattern of simultaneous low sophistication incidents that individually appear to be unrelated. For everyday Americans, hardening against this threat means elevating situational awareness at soft targets, building real community level behavioral baselines so abnormal becomes recognizable, and understanding that the FBI tip line is not a last resort. It's the primary detection mechanism for a threat that law enforcement cannot see from the outside. I'm just going to make a comment that I made last night or Monday night. I trust the sheriff a whole lot more than I trust the FBI. And if I'm going to call something in, I'm calling it into the sheriff, because if the sheriff goes to the FBI, they have a lot more clout than I do. And again, I trust our network of sheriffs across the country way more than the FBI. Anyway, this is why stopping decentralized jihadi demands more than federal task forces. It requires everyday Americans who know what to watch for. If you want real-time escalation alerts, clear indicators, and the tools to protect your family and community ahead of the next trigger, again, that's exactly why I created the Survival Dispatch News Guardians. It's only 33 cents a day at survivaldispatch.news, coming straight to you. What are the specific escalation indicators that intelligence professionals watch when they assess whether the decentralized jihadi threat is climbing? And in your purview, which of those indicators, is flashing red, like Christopher Wray said on the Congress floor a couple years ago?
The one that's flashing red right now for everybody is the amount of surveillance that's going on. You have individuals that are being openly surveilled and no one's paying attention to them. That's problem number one. Locations are being openly surveilled and it's not just they're being surveilled, but they're being videotaped, they're being photographed, they are being mapped out, where they're walking through the building saying, this is the hallway, this is the main hallway. Here's a door that opens to such and such room. Here's a door that opens to such and such room. There's this many people here. There's this many people here. Back when we were hammering on the hotels, sorry, on the hospitals, the number of people that were testing doors, and no one was paying attention to, and no one was reporting it to the FBI. Those are things that people need to go, wait a minute, why is this happening? That's problem number one. Problem number two is when you start seeing people that are normal yesterday and all of a sudden all psyched up and amped up 2 days later. Those are people you need to pay attention to, because there's something wrong that they're planning something that's negative. Whether it just be attacking somebody and beating them up or carrying out a terror attack, there are different levels that people will go to nowadays. Randy's right to an extent where the media has ramped up a lot of people that they shouldn't be ramping up. Add into that the fact that people are so chemically dependent. There's no other way to say it. So chemically dependent on getting through the day. You have people that are not even thinking what they're doing, whether it be SSRIs or happy pills or Xanax or Valium or whatever you need to get through the day. As long as you're taking those pills, you have no situational awareness, none whatsoever, because you are so wrapped up in yourself that you don't see what's going on around you. So the problem you've got right now is that everyone in America, well, not everybody, I'd say about 50% of Americans are on some kind of chemical. Whatever chemical it may be, they're on some kind of chemical, which means they're not paying attention to what's going on around them. And the best way to test this, Chris, walk into a restaurant, walk into a bar, walk into a pub, and make a hostile comment, and you'll see how few people react.
Give me an example.
Walk in and say something about about America. Worst country in the world.
Hey, man, all you got to do is walk in and say something about Trump. Either way, you're going to find somebody on one side or the other.
Yeah, true story, true story. Jeff MD, the Gracie Mansion attackers had a backup target list that included festivals, parades, and celebrations. What does that target selection logic tell us about where American families are the most exposed to these, ISIS radicalized lone wolves?
Well, anywhere that you're surrounded, there's a bunch of unassuming, kind of blind people. I don't mean blind physically, but I mean not paying attention. If you're at a parade, you're not looking at the people around you, you're looking at the parade. If you're at the park, you're probably playing with your kids, you're not looking at the people around you. So what they're looking for are victims who are unaware. And what that allows them to do is to have a lot of victims before people actually react. If you went to a place that's like all military people and you started shooting, man, those guys are going to be diving for cover right and left because they've been trained. They know what to do when they hear gunfire. They're not just going to be sitting there with a dumb look on their face. But there are so many people. Well, we saw that one in England not too long ago. There was a guy and the cops shot him. And there were people just walking down the street, and the guy, they thought he may have had a bomb on him. And the cops are standing on the sidewalk with their guns pointed at the terrorist who's laying on the ground 15 feet away. And you have these people just oblivious walking around the cop, almost like they're pissed off that he's in their way. So they were picking locations where the last thing people were worried about was being attacked. And what that does is it gives them a great big window at the beginning to start shooting people before they react.
Yeah, that scenario unfolds all the time, right? People are like, "Oh, there's a dead guy there." Oh, I mean, in that case, the guy could have had a dead man switch, or if he was still moving, he could have clacked it off.
Something happens, and people run towards the explosion. It's like, no, dumbass, you run away from bombs.
Like this with their cameras.
Yeah. And I told you once about, we had an A7 intruder crash at U of A on campus in 1978. I mean, just off campus. It was carrying 2 500-pound bombs. It had it engine flamed out. The guy was trying to make it to a practice football field, crashed in an intersection. And I had friends that were on campus at the time, and it flew right over my dorm. But these were guys who grew up on Okinawa during Vietnam. And they said, everybody's running towards the crash site. And he says, you can tell the military brats because they're running away from the crash site. Because he was on Okinawa when B-52s would be taking off to do arc lights in North Vietnam, and then they crash on takeoff and make a huge crater at the end of the runway because they were full of bombs and they basically vaporized. But people, it's their curiosity. Well, let me go see what that was. No, how about not?
Yeah, and how about Samuel? Want to say thank you once again for the generous tip. We appreciate that and the compliment very much. And no, nobody's coming to rescue America, whether the grid goes down or anything else.
That's NATO. NATO's going to come. They're going to hop on all their their transport. They're going to fly to America, drop in their shock troops, and save us.
Well, hold on a second. Question, Jeff Nicholas. The next question is yours, but let me give you a prior question to that. I read yesterday that none of the NATO countries have the ability to move large volumes of troops by air without us doing it for them. Explain that a little bit. How vulnerable are they? If we pull out of NATO, how up the creek are they, Jeff?
Oh, they're done. They're done, and they know it. If you look at NATO, we funded. I forget. Trump was asking them to spend 5% of their GDP. Up until that point, we pretty much were the funding mechanism for NATO. And if you looked at all the bigger transports, C-17s, for example, some of them were owned by Germany, but they didn't make them. They bought them from the U.S. They don't have a way to project force around the world. And they're also part of the leadership that, is not interested in coming to our aid because they're all sinister in their plans as far as I'm concerned. But I'd go back to I'll go off on a tangent, brother. I don't want to do that.
No problem. But I appreciate the insight.
There's so many spider webs we could go off on all these issues. So
yeah, most definitely. So Jeff, give me your opinion. Is there a meaningful difference between an ISIS inspired attack versus an ISIS attack that's been directed by command and control centers and, a handler holding the person's hand, guiding them through this, that, and the other thing? Or does that distinction just flat out no longer matter unless you're an investigator?
Is that me?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought maybe it was the other Jeff. I really don't. I don't know. I mean, an attack is an attack. Obviously, the more command and control you have, the more forces you can control, the more impact you can have versus an isolated incident where you're trying to coach somebody through something and create an effect. I don't know. Even a blind squirrel can get a nut every now and then, I guess. But the more trained you are and the more you have a desire to see something through, probably the more effective you're going to be versus trying to just radicalize some people. But I think there's enough people that have been brought in. The radicalization of some people, I think, is just the icing on the cake. There's hundreds of thousands of trained jihadis in this country. And we'll find out what their modus operandi here is soon and what the plan is, but they could do a lot of damage. What my hope would be is if they all acted in unison to where they don't have a lot of depth of players and we can find out these guys, take them out, and hopefully they're not layered in there unless there's and they probably are smart enough to program to operate in waves with some time in between each wave or each attack. So
I appreciate
that. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
I think at the end of the day for Americans that barring something like Al-Qaeda pulling off big things like 9/11, that it doesn't matter if ISIS is directing somebody or not. And if they've just inspired them and given them the materials and let them loose as a lone wolf, I don't see that there's a whole lot of practical difference in the damage that it does, to Americans.
The level of damage could be different, but the fact is you're creating damage, you're creating chaos, you're creating fear.
Yeah, I was going to say psychological damage, right? Mm-hmm. So, Randy, and again, we've touched on this a little bit, over a couple different podcasts, but I want to get it out there again. At the family level, what are the behavioral warning signs that a young person is moving down this radicalization pipeline? And what should a parent do when they see this shit happening? I mean, in our day, it was easy, right? I mean, go ahead and pick the switch and then come on back, sort of thing. But give us your insight as far as what the indicators would be for the youngins, these kids playing video games, that sort of thing.
Well, as we've heard many people say after the fact, there definitely going to be some changes. It's got no different than a drug addiction. All of a sudden, your kid starts doing things differently than they have before, and certainly in significant areas. It's probably something you want to pay attention to and figure out what is the cause or what is driving that. And it very well could be that they're radicalized, and if they've all of a sudden got some different friends or people they're listening to online, maybe a time to figure out who they are and what they're doing, because, they could be talking to somebody that's radicalizing them. And, the part is they act out, you know what I mean? They probably are going to start saying things you never heard them say before, whether it be about bad things about this country, or may start talking about Allah or something like that, or just in general being upset about things, overly upset about things that maybe they wouldn't have been before. But again, I'll go back to, they're going to be changing a bunch of behaviors that they normally would not do. And that's going to be your biggest indication that something's going on with that individual, regardless if it's being radicalized or it's an addiction. That's what that's going to be your best indicators. And when it comes to that addiction thing, just like Jeff was talking about a while ago, when we see all these people walking around on drugs, now they're not thinking right. I'll just go to the point that, the year. So when I got injured and I wake up, they put me under at the cash. So they had to put me into surgery. I wake up 5 days later, I'm in San Antonio, and I'm in the burn ICU for a month and a half. And the amount of medication they gave me probably would have killed several horses. And I'm not even slightly embellishing that fact. There was a time I was taking 13 different medications, and 4 or 5 of those were in the pain. So I was on methadone, I was on Dilaudid, I was on fentanyl. They even gave me Percocet and some Flexeril. So I was on all that at the same time. And my point to it is, Christmas Day of 2007 was the day that I said, I'm not doing it anymore. As most of y'all already know, that I had the drug addiction with cocaine in my late teens and early 20s. And it was a serious deal. But I was able to overcome it where so many aren't. And, then I made something of myself. But what I realized is that also gave me insight into how I was going to get off the drugs now that I was on all these pain medications. And there were lots of guys that are probably still taking it to this day that were injured in the same year I was. That's no joke. It's hard to come off. But my point to it is, so Christmas Day on 2007, I said, that's it. Because I'd already been talking to the pain management guy, me and my now ex-wife, we were still married at the time. Like, look, I got to go back to work. I got kids. I can't do this for the rest of my life. I can't take this amount of medication for the rest of my life. And the guy really didn't want to take me off of it. No joke. And so finally, Christmas Day, I was like, that's it. I'm not taking anymore. And I went through several days of some very painful withdrawals. The biggest point to this whole story was, so like now I'm clean. We'll fast forward to 6 months later. And I'm not kidding. It was 6 months almost to the day. And I'd been to one of my medical appointments. I come back on the installation, which is an Air Force base. And I go to drive into the road that takes me to where I've got a badge in to be able to pull into the parking lot and park to go to work. And they're going to have a ceremony because also right outside that is the SOCOM Memorial, where every operator that's been killed since Vietnam is on that wall. And it's in the shape of a spearhead, just like the SOCOM patch is, or the unit patch. And so as I'm going past that, they're paying the Tim McGraw song about the soldier that didn't come back. And I don't know why, because, you know, I could hear it because the window was down. I was coming up to badge in, and I'll kid you not, this was the craziest day, one of the craziest days of my life. All of a sudden, I just start crying like a baby. I'm crying like a baby for no reason at all. And I'm thinking, man, what's going on? So I badge in, I go pull in, I sneak over to my parking spot, and I sit in this parking spot for 30 minutes trying to think, this has got to stop at some point. But I'm just crying like a baby. So long story short, I go into work. Luckily, I had a female boss. She understood, said, go home. I go home. I cried the rest of the day. It took a week or two, but you know what? What I finally realized was I was on so much pain medication, so many drugs that entire year that even though I thought I was taking part in everything and I was making decisions and I felt emotions and I felt this, I hadn't felt any of it. I was so snowed under and so much drugs. It took me 6 months for it to clear out my head. And now everything that had happened in that entire year and a half, from the moment my injury happened to all the pain and everything in between, came crashing down on me right on top of my shoulders, all in an instant. And now I felt everything from that year and a half. And I cried like a freaking baby as a grown man for a full day. And I couldn't stop until it finally stopped later that day in the evening. And that's what it was. So, yeah, if you're on all those drugs, you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, boy, howdy. It's a crazy story, Randy. Appreciate you sharing that. Khalid, I see that our good friend Keith Graves has lowered the threat indicator for church attacks in America from red to yellow. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on American churches and houses of worship, how they should be thinking about their physical security posture right now, given the recent ISIS al-Naba call specifically targeting Christian and Jewish sites here in America.
Well, you've got to go from a layered approach. The best security you can do is not just doorway, but you work in layers. The easiest way to do it is you have people with a law enforcement background standing out in the parking lot, so you can pick people off when they're getting out of their cars or when they're pulling into the parking lot. You can recognize a lot of things about the way someone's walking or the way someone's behaving by the way they come out of their car. Second thing is when you have somebody at the door, and I said this before, I've been to a number of Christian churches when I was in the US, and the thing I always found really welcoming was there was somebody standing at the door that said, "Hey, how are you? Welcome to the church. What's your name? What brings you to our church today?" And it was a great interaction. But not only is it an interaction, it's a way for you to vet somebody as how and why they're there. As long as we start being more proactive in our own protection, I say this to everybody, and I do this with my friends' kids. Give me your phone. Unlock your phone and hand it to me. Let me see who you're talking to. Let me see how you're talking to them. When someone is embedded into a method of life that is not part of the normal system, you need to get inside of it. And once you get inside of it, you will start to understand how radicalized somebody is. You cannot wait until the attack. And I've said this before, Chris, that's the last step. When the attack happens, you've already missed everything else. You've missed the boat. They have actually been able to carry out that attack successfully, and they've killed a number of people. Now you're playing the role of investigator. You're working backwards. That's reactive. The proactive approach is to take the step beforehand, stand somebody at the door, be in the parking lot, different layers of people that someone has to get through before they get through the church door, before they into the congregation. because you can vet somebody and stop somebody before they enter the church that is someone who should not be there.
Yeah, great advice, Khalid. So, final question, segment 3 is for both Jeffs. I'll go to Jeff MD first, then I'll come to you, Jeff Nicholas. If you could force one structural change to American counterterrorism, the system that we have, to better address this leadership-less jihadi model, what would it be? Like if you had the opportunity to change one thing in our counterterrorism related to these jihadis who are radicalized online, activated online, and are the proverbial needle in a stack of needles.
I would work desperately to increase coordination with local cops. There are joint terrorism task force, but they're usually only in major cities. And there are local cops on those task forces, but there's usually a few. And to be quite honest, I don't think the FBI and the feds really take them that seriously unless they have a unique language skill that they need. But the smaller towns, the suburbs, really don't have an outlet when they have information. They need to be able to, that, you know, you go to a guy and say, I've got this weird guy's been going through my neighborhood, and you tell your local cop. He's got to have somewhere to go with that. He's got to have somewhere he can go, okay, this is what I found out about the guy, but I've got his name and address, but I don't know who he is. They need to feel comfortable and have a quick, efficient way to run that through federal databases. So if that guy has shown up anywhere before, if you can pull up his immigration records, if you can find out where in the hell he came from, I think it would help. Then it would also allow them to filter and say, okay, this is a more credible threat. This one probably isn't. But right now, you give them information. What are they going to do with it? There's not probable cause to go get a warrant and search the guy's house. You might want to try and call him in for questioning, but if he doesn't show, he doesn't show. I think they need to have a way to access, not directly, because you need clearances for that, but indirectly, or have a route to access federal information and nationwide information. Maybe the guy was in a small town in Utah last week or last year, acting equally weird. You just, you need to have a way to share that information.
Yeah, great answer. Great answer. So, Jeff Nicholas, want to hear your thoughts on one structural change to our counterterrorism. You're on mute, Jeff. Jeff 2 on mute.
Just one, huh? Okay. I would say change in leadership and change in mindset. You got to have a warrior mentality, and you got to start changing how we go about these. You can't use the same old practices. We need to be proactive. We need to go after these guys. So I got to stop because I just said change in leadership. You just said one thing.
Go ahead. Go add a couple more to it, Jeff. Take it away.
Well, the thing is, we've got to start being proactive. We need to round up these suspected guys. We need to isolate them. We need to detain them permanently if necessary. We need to find out who their connections are. And we need to start going after places that would be considered taboo, mosques and things like that, where this stuff is being bred. And we need to start systematically making dents into this network and these networks, and we need to get the military involved before major things happen. The infiltration of the enemy within the country already, to me, warrants the use of military. We have been invaded from within. They just haven't, committed a major act yet. But the thing is, we've been infiltrated, we've been invaded, we know they're here, and we need to start just being proactive about it before they're proactive with us, because it's gonna be a crap show when it does happen.
Yeah, so Jeff, I've written a couple articles last month on actually this very suggestion that you made, and I'll pull it up, one of them up on screen here, and I'll share the link in just a second. Basically, both articles, Jeff, come back to the fact that if an imam in a mosque in America is preaching illegal stuff, violence against America, violence against Americans, that is grounds. This has gone to SCOTUS, by the way. That is grounds to denaturalize and deport, okay? If the people who are members of that church make a financial contribution, pardon me, to that mosque, they can also be denaturalized and thrown out of the country for providing material support. And none of this is theoretical. Okay. Again, I'll paste this. This is the shorter of the two articles. Okay. And that's where it ends right there. The shorter of the two articles. I cite all kinds of cases and the constitutional law and stuff that goes down from there, what SCOTUS has stood behind. So let me give you that question, Jeff Nicholas. Why is not a single person doing this? Why is not a single politician having the balls to stand up and get these vermin out of our country?
Well, it's called payoffs. It's called laziness. It's called apathy. It's called whatever you want to call it. It's too stupid to be stupid. Why is Texas full? It's supposed to be a very conservative red state. Why is Texas and Governor Abbott taking so much money from Muslims? So this is the thing is, people don't realize how stupid they are when they realize that they have filled their pockets to watch the destruction of their children, their grandchildren, their nation, the life that we knew as a country. We had this saying in the Army, well, my tent's up. Well, your tent's up is only as long as it's safe to put a tent up, if you know what I mean. In other words, I'm squared away. And now all of a sudden they're going to be dealt with if the other people do take control, because they were just useful idiots. And half of Congress is full of useful idiots. So that's why. And they hate this country. They've been installed through a bad election system. And we have people running this nation that literally hate this country and hate us middle-aged white guys with a passion. And we're the enemy, like Randy had said earlier. So, I mean, that's just the short of it. I mean, we could go down the rabbit hole, all kinds of different stuff here, and I don't want to do it.
No, I appreciate that. Would you be surprised, Jeff, to find out that depending on whose numbers you want to believe, that people in Texas who are 20 years or younger, that only 20 to 29%, that's the range, 20 to 29% of people 20 years old and younger in Texas are Caucasian. That's one generation from being wiped out.
I believe that.
Sickening is what it is. It's absolutely sickening. So, holy cow, Randy, would you look at the time of night? For some reason, this keeps putting Jeff over there. I'm not doing that. I'm not even touching anything. He wants to flip me. And
I was wondering it a minute ago, then he popped over. So, but I was also going to say that, besides all the money he's taken, Jeff, as you may know, I don't know if you're aware, but he's also, and I don't know if it's specifically through him, but through the state of Texas, they've given $14 million in grants for them to build mosque.
A lot more than that. That was one.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. He's probably right. If we could see all the money, it would probably be staggering. 14 million staggering is enough.
It's absolutely staggering. So anyway, it's that time of the night for the Carnival practical payoff. Randy's doing the countdown there. I'm going off of his fingers. Let her rip, Randy. 3, 2, 1. All right. So the Carnival practical payoff we started doing a couple months ago. It's one skill or one item or one mindset shift related to the main topic of the night that our panel wants to share with the audience. And at the end of the day, this decentralized jihad threat, it's not, theoretical. It's active. We got plenty of examples already. It's not only active, it's escalating. So with that being said, I'm just going to go in the same order. Jeff and it's your pick, one skill, one item, or one mindset shift.
I'm going to go with a mindset shift.
Always.
Well, not always. Well, actually, I'll tell you what. I'll go with one item.
Okay.
Just for you.
Thank you.
You need to have a concealed weapon, handgun, and a way to carry it securely and safely and secretly, and use it enough under different conditions that you're comfortable using it. Because if something happens ain't no one coming to rescue you. You're going to have to be your own first responder. And by that, I don't mean EMT.
Yeah, you are your own first responder. Jeff Nicholas, your thoughts on either one skill, one item, one mindset shift related to tonight's topic?
If you would have said a heart shift, I would have said we need Jesus and we need to repent. We need to come back. So I'm going to give you an item, and that's the Bible. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. He says, my word shall not come back to me void. And the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much in James. And the fact is, everything that we've talked about tonight with all the issues that we have stem from the heart. It stems from pride, and it stems from hatred against fellow man whom God created. And it's our hearts that are the big thing, and the Bible can change our heart.
Amen to that, Jeff. Amen to that. Randy, your choice.
Well, let me think here. I'm going to go with, we'll just say another book, man. Get you that Ranger handbook, or get you somebody, I think it was Peter, sent me a picture after that where he had found a book from the infantry, and it had infantry tactics, which is similar. It'll be a little different than a Ranger handbook, but all of them will give you the 5 principles of patrolling, which are planning, reconnaissance, security, control, and common sense. So, and why you would want to know the 5 principles of patrolling, not that you're going to be out patrolling for bad guys, but it's a way that you would also move through terrain and maybe not be discovered, right? If you were trying to make your way back to home for whatever reason, or wherever you're trying to go if you're out on the lam. So I'm going to go with that. And same thing with Jeff, keep that Bible close by. As we all know, man, really what would turn this situation around is if we invited God back into the public space, into the government, into school, and we prayed and asked for forgiveness, and then we repented for a period of time. Well, that'd be a concept.
And we have to have a crusade in there somewhere as well.
We might as well, because the time is right. The time is right.
2 Chronicles 7:14, guys. Look it up.
I'm sure you got it off the top of your head, Jeff. Share it with us before I go to Khalid.
If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, then I will forgive their sin and heal their land. Pretty much that's what it says.
Amen. Listen, I want to second Randy's comment on the Army Ranger handbook. This is the waterproof version. But if you're going to use this as an example of an item, Randy, you don't need readers. You need a high-powered microscope with a high-powered light if you think you're going to read this thing.
For us old people, he's correct. Now, Peter showed me the infantry one, and it's the regular size that most all the other manuals come in.
I've got the 2017 and the 2025 Ranger handbook, and I'm telling you, you got to have like a Fresnel lens to read the damn things. Khalid, sorry about the extended part here, and I'm assuming you're going to do a sit rep for us, so I'm going to turn it over to you after everybody else calls it a night. But give me your thoughts on a skill, an item, or a mindset shift, Khalid.
I'm going to give you a task.
Even better.
We've started doing this. I've had some people in the U.S. reach out to me on how they can protect their communities. And we've helped them start developing a Sentinel network. A Sentinel network is a group of people that build an open source website, whether it be on Substack or they buy a domain and they call it Sentinel in whatever city they're in. And whatever suspicious person is in their neighborhood, they take a picture or a video and they upload it to that website. They get law enforcement involved, and people then start to be able to track people from one city to another, track behavior from one place to another. It becomes a communication platform as well, that if you catch your kids using a certain software for communication with bad actors, you can list that software for everyone in that Sentinel network to check their kids' phones and their family members. So the thing we've been recommending to people in the US is start building Sentinel networks. It builds a community network for you that is completely underground. No one knows who you are. No one knows who's putting that stuff online, but it gives you a way to track and understand what's happening in your own community that is dangerous or bad behavior.
Yeah, good stuff. We do some similar stuff like that in our neighborhood. We share a lot of information with half a dozen cops who live in close proximity here. I'll just throw out their final skill. Speaking of our community or neighborhood, learn to read your environment for behavioral pre-tac indicators like abnormal behavior, like we talked last night, empty homes that have people coming and going at strange hours of the day. The TDA was using them here in Florida as stash houses. We've got some intel saying that jihadis are now doing the same thing. Our neighborhood is, our home's nothing special, but this is an upper middle class neighborhood. And we've had a lot of people in here in the past 6 months that do not belong in here, whether it be skinheads with tattoos over their heads to being followed by people who don't even speak English, speaking in Arabic, that were riding bicycles so slow behind us, it would have tipped over if they hadn't have been weaving. And when we confronted them, it's that feeling you get when the hair stands up in the back of your neck. So that's it for the main topic. Jeff and Randy, appreciate your time very much, because I'm going to hand this over to Khalid and let him roll with an extended sit rep. I got to quickly mention, don't forget our friends at Carnivalt, carnivalt.com. We've got some interesting stuff coming from these guys. Stay tuned for that. Next week, I may have some pretty big announcements there. And by the way, Randy, have you had any Wasatch Wagyu today?
Well, I've had two.
Okay, so I have to speak very quietly here because Greg Wasatch sent me a new stash and I managed to intercept it before my wife did.
Ooh.
It's because normally what happens, she intercepts it and then she gives it away to everybody and I can't find it. This one's just
I friended your wife on Facebook. I'm going to direct message her and let her know you have.
You do know I can edit that out after this live goes recorded.
It doesn't matter. I'm serious. I'll just go to Facebook and let her know.
Telling you straight. Don't jack with my flashlights. Don't jack.
I'm gonna rat you out, man. You're hoarding all the jerky.
Figures the CIA guy would do that.
You're hoarding the jerky, man. You got to share. You're not sharing. What did we learn in school today? Sharing.
Not gonna share. End of story. All right, Jeff, and Randy. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Very much. Everybody else, don't go anywhere. Khalid's getting ready to drop some amazing information on us. Let her rip, Khalid.
It's been an interesting couple of weeks for us. I have been in so many countries, I've lost count of where I've been.
Khalid, I'm going to grab a coffee. You got a good 10, 12, 15 minutes. Let her rip. Sorry to interrupt.
All right, man. All right. Let's start off with what's going on here. Pakistan is hosting the Iran-US ceasefire negotiations starting tomorrow. I was called back to Islamabad to take part in briefing papers and talking points. JD Vance is in the country. The Iranis are in the country. Everyone I've spoken to so far in the intelligence community, from our own intelligence community here in Pakistan, to CIA, to IRGC, to MI6, because every intelligence agency is watching this conversation that's happening in Islamabad tomorrow. No one is expecting this to result in anything favorable. Iran has already done what Iran is going to do. They are limiting the number of vehicles, the number of vessels that can come through the Persian Gulf, through the Strait of Hormuz. 15 vessels a day, that's nothing. The problem is that 15 vessels a day means that the world's oil problem is going to get much worse. The fertilizer problem is going to get much worse. Inflation is going to get much worse. I don't see a way out of where we're headed right now. And I don't want to be negative about this, because I've been inside of Iran during the bombing that's been going on. The Iranian people are united in a fight. Um, and that's a scary thing because you would expect that after being bombed the way they've been bombed, you would figure Iran would no longer have that unity. But there's a lot of unity among the people. There have been a couple, and this hasn't been reported in the media. There have been a couple of coup attempts inside the IRGC where they've tried to overthrow the government, sorry, the ruling leadership of the IRGC so they could get more control. And it's the more radical version of the IRGC that's trying to take control of Iran right now. At the same time, you've got a lot of fighting going on in different provinces for control of resources, control of land, control of different areas. I don't see this ending well. Whatever happens in Iran post negotiations is going to be bad for the entire world. I know the Irani cyber teams, whether it be Handala, whether it be Muddy Waters, whether it be the Russians that are working with them, whether it be the Chinese that are working with them, they have carried out a number of cyber attacks. Not only on banks and on the Israeli government, but they have carried out some attacks on infrastructure in the U.S. that have been very successful. We know for a fact that they were able to carry out an attack on U.S. PLCs. PLCs are what controls all your devices, whether it be on a construction site, whether it be a manufacturing site, whether it be your power grids. The PLC is what controls that system. And when you're able to attack a PLC, you're able to affect everything that goes on in the US. And our concern right now is that Iran, before carrying out a sleeper cell attack in the United States, will attack banks, will attack your grids, will attack your logistics system, will attack your transit system, will attack your 911, your EMS, your emergency response systems. Now, there's a reason I say that. Everyone remembers during the UN General Assembly, the FBI stumbled upon a Chinese mobile network that was able to jam the entire mobile network in New York City. Over the past 3 weeks, we've been able to confirm there are now in the neighborhood of 50 different networks just like that operating inside the United States. There are another 25 operating inside the United Kingdom. The sole purpose is when Iran decides they're going to kick off the attacks inside the US, or even if it's ISIS, even if it's Al Qaeda, they're working with the IRGC to carry out these attacks. When you're able to jam those systems, that changes everything. It means communication goes down. It means a lot of things that are dependent on mobile communications disappear. And too many people believe that their family communication system is a mobile. No, that's a program. That's a plan that's going to fail. It's just not going to happen that way. The problem I've got right now is that trying to explain every piece they put into play, trying to explain everything they're able to do, it would take me an hour to describe everything Iran has got in play already. And all of those things we've been able to get because we've been interrogating people inside of Afghanistan. We've interrogated people inside of Iran. We've had conversations with people in both countries as well. A lot of intelligence has come out over the past 3 weeks. And the past 3 weeks has given us a very different picture of what's happening in the world. What's coming is not, and I had this conversation with the CIA today. They have no idea what's coming. And it was a series of questions I asked one of the CIA officers that was here in Pakistan with JD Vance. Um, he had no clue what I was talking about, and the different things I was asking him about that exist or operational inside the U.S. He looked at me with such a blank stare that I kind of went, "Oh my God, you have no clue what's coming." And when you have no clue what's coming, it's game over. Um, this is now the second conversation I've had with U.S. intelligence. Once was with U.S. military that was interested in discussing what was going on in Iran. Um, when I bridged into U.S. and what was happening inside the United States, they all went, "Holy shit, what are you talking about?" And the blank stares, I kind of just looked at them, and I handed them 2 or 3 papers that we've written that we've never released publicly. They've stayed confidential to only governments and intelligence services. We gave them to the CIA. We gave them to the military. And when they read through them, they were absolutely shocked. We did a complete paper on Coronado Island, and the different attack points, the different ways that Coronado could be defeated and captured. The problem we've got is, and I said this to the U.S. representatives that were here before and now, you're not talking to the people that know what they're talking about. You're talking to people that you feel comfortable with. You are not going to find out what a terrorist is doing by talking to people that you feel comfortable with. You are going to find out what terrorists are doing when you're talking to people that are actually fighting them on the ground. And a 15, 20-year track record that we've got against in counterterrorism, not only from an intelligence point of view, but from a kinetic warfare point of view, we understand who we're fighting and how we're fighting them and what they're capable of. The U.S. has no clue. And there's 2 reasons why they have no clue. Number one, you're taking your intelligence from terrorists, asking the Taliban, asking Jolani, who is a terrorist, what could they potentially be carried out, what they could potentially do. That's a recipe for disaster, number one. Number two, when you start thinking about the playbook that you are following, and I went through our. It hasn't been made public yet, but I've sent this to maybe 20, 30 people in my own network. The Command 11 Global Counterterrorism Assessment is about to be released once our website is completed and goes live again, which will probably be Monday or Tuesday. There's a 97-page document we've written on how to fight terrorism in today's world, meaning we've written the playbook on how to fight terrorism with what they're doing right now. And we've covered how the financing is done, how the communications is done, what to look for. We've given you community advice on how to operate as a community and work on this. Chris has been through it. A number of other people have been through it. The feedback we've gotten so far has been that, this is the book we should have had 2 years ago, because this tells us what we should be looking for in terms of behavior, in terms of language patterns, in terms of how people are being radicalized, what things we should be taking into account when we're fighting terrorism. We've written a blueprint on what law enforcement needs to do. And hopefully Monday or Tuesday, we'll be able to release it once our website goes live again. It's 97 pages of real intelligence. And I don't say it in bravado or in trying to be very powerful in what we have. But when we spent 15 years fighting these guys on the ground, since 2007, I've been part of the war on terror. We understand things that you still have not seen, that you still don't understand. And that when we translate that into actionable steps, where we point out where those hotspots are, how those hotspots are affecting the United States, how those hotspots are affecting the global system, you actually have a plan on how to work. It's the Command 11 2026 Global Counterterrorism Assessment. I would advise everyone to download it. It is free. Monday, Tuesday, site will go live. We'll put it's already on our website. It will give you the playbook on how to fight terrorism today. And it's something that the FBI doesn't have. It's something the CIA doesn't have. I mean, I've literally gone through it with a CIA agent, with a CIA officer, and had them go, "Holy shit, how do you know this?" Which is scary to me because we're not government. We're not a government intelligence agency. We're a private intelligence agency. It is something that will be of great advantage to you, not only individually, but from a community point of view. And as many law enforcement officers as you can get it into their hands, it will be an advantage to them. So that's where I'm going to cut off. Chris is back. I see him on screen. Chris, you're still on mute.
See what happens when I get distracted. Anyway, you got time to go through a handful of expos?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that then. Let me get us back over there. All right, there we go. So I'm gonna read this, and I think we should run a poll on this, but let me read it first, okay?
All right.
So this was in reference to what happened in Serbia with Milosevic, okay? And, you know, it's not whether he was deserving to be removed or not, but what matters is the bulldozer revolution locked in a repeated sequence that later color revolutions would follow. The method can be condensed into a handful of stages. Number one, pre-election conditioning, building civic networks, media outlets, youth movements, polling capacity, foreign-assisted NGOs. Number two, election day monitoring, deploy domestic and foreign observers, run parallel vote tabulations and exit polls. Parallel, by the way, polls. Discrepancy identification, frame official results as illegitimate if they diverge from the parallel count. Counter elite activation, support opposition leaders who call for mass protest strikes and civil disobedience. Number five, international amplification. Ensure foreign media, NGOs, and governments all declare solidarity with the opposition and question the incumbent's legitimacy. Number six, security service fracture. Organize defections among police, military, or intelligence to eliminate the regime's enforcement capability. Number seven, transfer of authority. Insist the incumbent concede or be forced out. The counter elite then assumes office with immediate diplomatic recognition and donor backing. Number one, would it surprise you that this is a CIA playbook? Number two, is it going to surprise anybody by this point in time that the CIA has been running a color revolution against us here in America ever since Trump came down the escalator?
Not a surprise. Not a surprise at all. The CIA is a master of color revolutions. They're also a master of failed color revolutions. If you look at the Arab Spring, I mean, that was the worst color revolution we have ever seen. They tried it in Georgia. They tried it in a number of other countries in Central Asia. The interesting part is, you know, you cannot dictate who comes into power if they're going to be your friend or not. Look at Zelensky in the Ukraine. Zelensky was the option that the CIA decided during the Obama administration that, you know, Zelensky is the best guy to become president of Ukraine. Right. Look at how long this war has lasted, even though he's getting his ass handed to him. And he's still carrying on this war because he's making so much money off of it. Yeah, and exactly. So are the Democrats. I mean, so much money is being transferred back to the Democratic Party, which has now been proven that millions of dollars has been funneled back to Democratic candidates. When you look at it from that point of view, there's two things we look at. Like if we look at the Middle East, the reason that the CIA likes to have monarchies is they think you can control a monarchy. And they're more afraid of who will come into power after the monarchy is gone, because when 98% of the wealth of the country is in one family's hands and 2% the rest of the country is fighting over, you're not going to have a lot of friends when they step out of power. Color revolutions will never work. You need to let a process of democracy happen. And I'll give you Pakistan as an example. We have three major political parties in Pakistan. All three of them have separate lobby groups inside the United States lobbying the U.S. government for why they should be why they should be the leaders of the government. And once they come into power, the only thing they're interested in is corruption. They pad their bank accounts, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, however long their government lasts. And when they leave, the corruption cases start and the country loses more money. The CIA and the US government has never been concerned about how much money of the US taxpayers has been stolen by foreign countries. You send that money to Pakistan and to other countries for aid, human development, infrastructure development. It all ends up in a bank account of a politician who goes and buys property in the United States. That is a crime in the US. You know it's corruption. You know that money's been stolen and funneled back in the US to buy property. Yet you do nothing about it. And those people come back to power again and again and again because the US refuses to step up and support these countries that are struggling. Pakistan takes loans from the IMF. All of that money ends up in politicians' bank accounts. Yet the country's left with the debt. And the people are paying back money that the US could easily turn around and say, look, because of the color revolution we decided to carry out and we brought the wrong person into power, they stole the money and they've invested it back in the US. Let's use US law to get our money back, number one. Number two, let's arrest these people and put them in jail forever. And we never see that happen. That's the biggest reason why color revolutions have been so favorable to the Western governments, and so the biggest reason why they failed in so many countries.
Yeah. Not surprising at all that they're running this color revolution against us. Again, we're the firewall between globalism and freedom. So long as we're in their way, that they can't fall through on it. Check this out, Khalid. This would be part of said color revolution. Meet Zul Muhammad. He pleaded guilty to 106 felony voter fraud charges for forging mail-in ballot applications. He's now running for mayor in Carrollton, Texas, and wants to be in charge of passing laws. What do you make of that, Khalid? I mean,
I don't believe that anyone who is a naturalized American should be allowed to run for office. Period. End of story. You either are born in the U.S., and being born in the U.S. makes you eligible to run for political office. If I come to the U.S. and I become a naturalized citizen and I run for office, I'm not an American, and I shouldn't be allowed to have that power because at the end of the day, I wasn't ingrained with the values. I mean, someone who's been in the U.S. for I spent 27 years in the U.S. I grew up there. I mean, my values are American values. But someone who's been in the U.S. for 5 years, gotten his naturalization, and now decides to run for political office is only going to cause problems. They are not going to build America. They're going to destroy America. And someone like this, when you've been arrested for 106 felony counts of voter fraud, how can you even be approved to be on a ballot?
I mean, it's straight up insanity. But you heard the numbers on Texas. I mean, depending again whose numbers you want to believe, somewhere between 20 and 29% of Texans who are 20 years old or younger are Caucasian. And we've said it for years, America will go the way Texas goes. This is all out war. And, you know, I got a nasty Graham email. I get them all the time today from somebody saying that I was Islamophobia and my entire podcast is just divisive bullshit and blah, 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 blah. And the picture attached to the account, would it surprise you, Khalid, was probably like a 60-year-old white woman? Does that surprise you?
Oh, my God.
Listen to this shit in Dearborn. When a Christian resident of Dearborn, Michigan spoke out against naming a street after a well-known Hezbollah supporter, Osama Siblani, Mayor Abdullah Hammoud gets very angry. You do not belong in this city, Islamophobe, Get out. You're not welcome here. How about you get the fuck out of our country, you fucking piece of shit?
This actually, Chris, this actually happened almost a year ago.
The embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel it's quite inappropriate.
You are an Islamophobe. And although you live here, I want you to know as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city. Because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence.
Who believes in coexistence. You take your coexistence and shove it up your fucking ass. That's what I have to say. Check this out. Tommy Robinson. Someone just sent me the ISIS magazine that recently called for my death. Kill the one who disrespects the prophet, with a picture of Tommy Robinson. I mean, he's back in the UK right now. What do you reckon his safety or lack thereof is at right now, level wise?
It's not high. I know he's got his own security team that moves with him, but the problem, Chris, the problem in the UK is the exact same problem you have in the US. Is the intelligence services and law enforcement are not geared for handling threats from Islamic terrorists. And I told you the story. I think I've said it on air as well, how we had to push MI6 to take down an Al-Qaeda safe house in London, where we had the address, we had the name of the person running the place, we had his phone number. I spent 3 hours on the phone with MI6 trying to get them to move on that. And the threat I made, if you will not do it, I will call Tommy Robinson, and he will.
Right on. All right, let me get the next one up here, Khalid. I have not had a chance to watch this. This is my friend Sean Taylor in Tennessee. This is the cop who did the 12-year investigation into child sex trafficking in the state of Tennessee that none of us have released for. We'll all end up committing suicide by shooting ourselves 6 times in the back of the head.
Yeah.
But he's got some people backing him now. I have all of the evidence. I've seen the evidence. It's overwhelming. But let's hear what he's got to say here, because he says, you tell them we the people are coming and hell's coming with us. You got to love that line from, oh, shoot. Come on now. The famous Western. It'll come to me in a second.
Well, people, there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of movement that's happening. And I love it. You guys should be loving it too. We've got congressional subpoenas coming out from Grassley investigating Jack Smith and the whole, I don't know, Arctic frost stuff that's happening. It's going to be interesting to see who's on that list. It's going to be interesting to see what state law enforcement agencies were tapped in by the corrupt FBI at that time under the Biden DOJ. It's going to be interesting to see what reporters were tapped in on this as well to attack people who believe in President Trump and in making America great. They consider us ultra MAGA extremists. Guess what, y'all? That's called a patriot. That's called believing in the Constitution. That's called wanting accountability. Hell's coming for every one of these corrupt pieces of shit. Stay tuned. God bless you, and God bless our republic.
Well, I mean, Sean's never shy to share his thoughts. That just got us a copyright infringement on CommieTube, by the way, because and without saying the name of the town, Greg Allman is from our town, by the way. He's no longer with us, of course. Give me your thoughts on what he had to say there. There's a lot of stuff coming out in the past week on those topics.
Chris, I still don't understand. Look, I still don't understand why child sex trafficking is still allowed to happen in the U.S. I mean, the investigations have been done, the people have been identified. What are you so afraid of in taking them down? And I'll put it this way, if the American government is so scared to take them down, give us the contract. We'll come and we'll take care of it ourselves. And our way of doing it is very simple. BFEs across the board. We will not carry out any arrests. We will not put them in front of judges that will release them. they will be taken care of in the system in the way they need to be taken care of. And Melania Trump came out today, and Donald Trump said that I didn't know she was going to make that statement. She came out today and said everyone involved in the Epstein cases, all the clients of Jeffrey Epstein, should be prosecuted. That's a very big statement to come out of the first lady. And Trump immediately said, I didn't know she was going to say that. I didn't know what her statement was going to be. It's obvious that at some point people are starting to go, wait a minute. Why is our justice system not operating the way it should? Why is it not protecting the people that are that need the most protection? Children have to be protected. And if you're going to let these people keep doing this, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Oh, Chris, I read a study. Oh my God. I read a study that was done in the US. And this is how bad things have gotten because of porn and all of this, the violence against women. A university brought 35 women together who had been strangled during sex in the past 30 days. Of the 35 women, 15 had been strangled, 17 had not. The 15 who had been strangled have brain damage. This is the level we've gotten to in the US. These things have now become acceptable, and no one's doing anything about it.
Well, you want to talk about the level that things have got to. Let me pull this one up ahead of the other one here. 14 arrests, competent enough to stab innocent Ukrainian refugee Erna Zertuska to death on a train. Now suddenly mentally incapable of trial. Bullshit. The savage deserves the death penalty, not taxpayer-funded delays for him. Rest in peace, Erna. That piece of shit right there. If this absolutely infuriates you, that these pieces of crap liberal judges keep letting these savages go, put a 1 in the live chat. I've been remiss in conducting audience polls, and that shit just pisses me the hell off. Unbelievable. Let me get another one up here because this one's pretty crazy. So this is the most chilling warning about Islam I've ever heard. Pastor Philip Mitchell is being called a bigot for this clip. He explains how America's attempt to be inclusive will be our downfall. Were his comments closed-minded, or do you agree with them? We'll do a poll on that in a second. But if you think these liberal judges are off the rails and that they need to go to jail, that son of a bitch was let go 14 times. And they're talking about putting him in like mental care and integrating him back into the community already. They've lost their fucking minds.
There is a radical ideology that is hostile towards Christianity, that is incompatible with Western fundamentals, that has swept through the East, that has swept through the continent of Africa, that has taken over all of Europe. It has entered into our shores. And if we don't have an awakening in this hour, your children are going to suffer, and so are mine.
I believe you're speaking about Islam.
Of course. The rise of Islam, radical Islam. They're very vocal on social media about their desire to take over America. And I think that it is a false sense of inclusion, is why we think that we shouldn't say nothing.
Right.
Or do nothing. Right. It is this same weakness to take a stand for Christ that saw the influence of Christianity wane in the East.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in our country think that, Christianity is a Western religion. It is not. It's an Eastern religion.
Yes,
and yet in the place where Christianity was born has been completely taken over by Islam. Right. And so when I just thinking about the people that we're putting in office, when I think about certain cities that's being taken over by that ideology, when I'm seeing a tolerance for that ideology creeping into America, and somebody will listen to this right now and say, you and I are closed-minded, that we are bigots, that we are not loving towards people outside the faith, and that is not true. I love all men, but I know we have an enemy that is working through men. And that if we don't wake up right now, sound the alarm, your children and mine are not going to recognize the United States we're living in right now.
We don't recognize it already.
Yep, I was going to say exact same thing, Chris.
I mean, it's not recognizable as it is. As a matter of fact, my friend Jason Wilson, a high-level political operative, the number one statement in his data set in 2024 was, I don't recognize my country. And that's American stuff. It's got nothing to do with international. It's just flabbergasting. By the way, just because this is the liberal piece of shit who ruled that the killer of Erna Zaruska can't stand trial. She's not competent to stand trial, not capable of standing trial. All of these fuckers, every last one of them, needs to be held accountable. It's unfreaking believable. And here's the next, rosy message here. Islam's going to take over every square inch of the globe. We let them in and empower them until one day they will rule us all, and we've enabled it. Let's hear what this guy's got to say. This is probably going to make my blood pressure skyrocket.
White people, if you are white and you're listening to this, listen very closely. Lately, I've been seeing many of you complaining about Islam and the immigration and stuff like that. And I'm going to separate the white people in two categories. The Americans, Canadians, and Australians do not count because they are white people that live in a country that's not theirs. You guys have invaded those lands.
To the victor goes the spoils, you dumb fuck.
From the rightful owner. So you guys get back to Europe, then we can talk. But for the European white people complaining about immigration and Islam, first of all, I want to tell you that Islam is going to take over every single square inch of the globe. It's the weak Muslims that always talk about Islam being a religion of peace. Islam is not. It's not a religion of peace. It does not mean peace. It means to submit to Allah, and it is a religion of justice. Put that in your head. It's the weak so-called Muslims, the cowards of this ummah, that claim that Muslims are religion of peace.
Alrighty. Khalid, go ahead and comment on that. But
yeah, I'd like to meet him in a dark alley. I'll teach him what peace and religion means. The problem I have with people like this is that not only are they stupid, but they're showing how stupid they are by recording videos like this. Before 9/11, you had Muslims living in the United States. They were all peaceful. They had no violent tendencies. No one was a hyphenated American. There was no such thing as Irani American or Pakistani American or Indian American. This all started during the Obama administration, when all of a sudden hyphenation became very important for everyone to have. And I still believe that if you move to a country and you decide that you are going to become part of that country, you either become fully part of that country or you go back to the country you came from. Now, the problem I've got with these idiots that make these videos is not only do you not understand Islam, you don't even know how stupid you look by saying these things. If you were actually going to take something over, then you wouldn't be making videos, you'd actually be doing it. And the guys that are making videos about how they're going to take over this country and they're going to take over that country, they're the cowards, because all of us have lived in all these countries. I myself have lived in 7 countries of the world. I've traveled to maybe 60. I've never held any violence towards any country that I've been in, because that's not why I go to these countries. I go there because I want that lifestyle. I want those opportunities, whether it be the UK, whether it be the Middle East, whether it be the United States. You go there and you become part of that country. People like this who are talking about we're going to take over and Islam is a religion of justice. Islam, the religion of justice that you're talking about, by talking like this, you'd end up being executed by the religion that you claim is a religion of justice. This is why I have a problem with stupid Muslims. Like, he designated people, Canadians and Australians and Americans, I'm going to take those out. There are Muslims that are stupid, and there are Muslims that actually know what their religion means. This is one of those stupid Muslims that think what I've heard from my imam is what the religion means, and I've never opened the Quran and actually read it, because everything that you're saying in that video has no basis in the Quran anywhere. And people like this just made me go, let's go meet in a dark alley and we'll see who comes out alive.
Yeah.
I guess I'd be in a Islam too, Chris.
Right. So, did you catch the lady who was killed by this Haitian immigrant with a hammer at the convenience store?
Yep, I did.
Here he is. An illegal alien from Haiti has been arrested in Fort Myers, Florida, after bludgeoning an innocent mother to death with a hammer, hitting her several times ahead at a gas station. Department of Homeland Security. This guy first entered the U.S. August 2022 and was released into the country under the Biden installation. A federal judge issued a final order of removal against him in 2022, but the Biden installation granted him temporary protected status, which expired in 2024.
Illegal migrant from Haiti has been arrested and is accused of killing a mother at a Florida gas station just last week. He reportedly struck the victim with a hammer multiple times. The migrant was released into the...
I'm not going to play the rest of it, but check this out. Look at the look on this guy's face on the right. If there were no body cameras, that guy would inflict 1970s and 80s style.
Yeah.
Policing on that piece of shit. All right, let's wrap up with half a dozen different ones on Ireland. It's we were joking about it last night because somebody posted a video of a bunch of Irish people mulling around, and the headline was, the Irish are violently committing civil war. Like, people were literally just walking around, but it's definitely amped things up a little bit more today. This was posted by Gunther Eagleman an hour ago. Ireland's reaching a breaking point. Mass immigration, a crippling housing crisis, and overwhelmed services have pushed native Irish to limit. Protests and clashes are escalating in major cities as the government and police struggle to keep order. The Irish people have had enough. Their country, culture, and safety are being sacrificed.
Get them off him! Get them off him! Get them off him! Get off him! Get off him! Get off him! Get off him!
So their country is being flooded, weaponized migration like the rest. Check this out. Ireland will be the first Western country to have a revolution, in my opinion, because based on Irish history, there's an instinctive dislike of authoritarian governments and a knowledge that resistance actually does work. Also, the current ruling class is among the most arrogant and out of touch in the Western world, and they keep doubling down on population suppression rather than exploring compromise. To top it off, the army and police force is very small compared to other Western nations. So if an actual organized resistance does happen, I don't think the government would actually have the means to suppress it. And now they're moving around some heavy vehicles.
So when it comes to home insurance, it makes sense to choose cover that
There you go. That's the entire army of Ireland. Okay, moving on to the next one. Ireland on the brink in the last 24 hours. Irish patriots have shut down the nation. Truck drivers, bus operators, and farmers have paralyzed cities with massive blockades. Even as Gardaí threatened 6 months in jail, I guess that's the cops, or maybe it's somebody's name I don't recognize. But anyway, more patriots fled the streets in defiance. Ireland is primed for revolution. Oh, great. We just got another fucking copyright infringement on Commie too. Golly. We already looked at that one. Shocking. The Irish government is at war with its own people. Ireland's defense minister confirms the army is being sent to crush peaceful protesters. They're deploying troops against Irish citizens while the country is flooded with shitbag migrants from shitbag third world countries.
And this is a country, and we as a government protect the right for people to protest.
I can't make this video any louder. As you can see, it's on its highest setting. Turn your volume up, however you're watching this.
Peacefully. It is something that we hold sacrosanct in this country, and it's something that needs to be protected. However, when you start to blockade fuel from actually getting out of depots, when you stop ambulances from getting through to hospitals, when you are stopping animal feed and produce that is needed to keep animals safe, when you have an animal welfare issue now emanating from this, there is a need to respond, and to respond effectively.
When you flood our countries with migrant pieces of shit from third world countries, there's a need for us to respond effectively. That's my response. I'm telling you, I'm pissed off tonight at all this shit that's going on. No, we will not move. Irish cops just threatened protesters with 6 months in jail for daring to fight back against the invasion. Their traitor government would rather cage its own people than stop the illegal immigrant gangs. Keep going, Ireland.
Do so in a peaceful and orderly manner will result in your possibly being arrested, and on conviction you'll be liable to a fine of €1,000 or up to 6 months in prison. I would just urge you all to please peacefully remove yourselves from the area. Thank you.
I would remove him from the area is what I would do.
Yeah.
What do the people of Ireland say? No! We will not move! We will not move!
I'm almost at the end of them here. Another one, great scenes coming out of Roselair in the southeast of the country. Protesters were threatened with arrest earlier. Since then, their numbers have grown, and they've brought in heavy machinery to reinforce the protest. This is the real Ireland.
You know that joke you have.
All right, I'll go ahead and stop there. Khalid, give me your thoughts on situation in Ireland.
Well, Chris, here's what I don't get. When you are fighting an illegal occupation, it's not an immigration, it's an occupation of your country.
Yep.
The people have every right to fight back. And when the army stands with the occupying force, that means that the country does not belong to the people anymore. And you can draw a similarity between what happens in the Middle East and in third world countries when protesters go out on the streets. The military is called out, rubber bullets are used, tear gas is used to disperse crowds. You now see Western countries doing the same thing against the same type of people that we have the same problems with in third world countries. Because you've let them into your country, you've let them change the culture and the fabric of your country, and now all of a sudden you have a problem with what they're doing in your country. The UK, Ireland, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, the United States, Canada have all been occupied. And the occupation is slowly starting to make itself vocal. We saw it in the US with the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah protests that went on. We saw it in the UK when people were protesting outside the 5-star hotels where these illegals were being housed and paid and fed. We're now seeing it in Ireland. At some point, we're going to see it in Texas. At some point, we're going to see it in other states in the United States where these third world animals, because not everybody from the third world is like this, but the animals that have been allowed to come to Western countries and take up residence need to be removed. And the only country that I saw do anything about it was Germany. Germany tried to force the EU to pass a law that would allow them to immediately deport any illegal in their country, not giving them any legal protection, not allowing them to claim refugee rights, not allowing them to take asylum rights. If you're in my country illegally, I send you back to your home country, no matter what the state is of your home country. Whether you are Afghani, Syrian, Iraqi, Pakistani, it does not matter. If you are in my country illegally, we will send you back. They built a coalition of 20 countries that were on board with them. They could not get the EU to pass the damn law. If you're not occupied, I don't know what else occupation looks like. When illegals have more power than the people that were born and raised in that country, that's an occupation.
Yeah, it's an invasion, it's occupation, it's all of the above. I probably got a couple more to share here just because. Ron DeSantis, he's been a good governor for us in Florida. I'll never forgive him for going with Paul Ryan and the WEF clowns. But on the whole, he's been a net positive for Florida. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Well, they've really shot themselves in the foot. I mean, you look at like the United Kingdom, that has been our best ally historically. We obviously came from there. Our culture grew out of English culture, our constitution and laws, all this stuff, very tight bond. But I think what they've done and other European countries have done, they've imported in mass numbers people who don't want to be British, don't want to be French. They want to take where they came from and they want to change those countries to reflect things like Sharia. So if the reason why we have been allied with them for so long is because we have strong political and cultural bonds, well, those have eroded because of decisions that they have made. So I think what they've done, particularly on mass immigration, has been suicidal. We can't make those mistakes in the United States. And, you know, when I signed this legislation, some people are like, oh, well, that's not happening in Florida or whatever. First of all, they said the same thing 10, 15 years ago in Britain. They said, oh, don't worry about this. And then now you've seen what's ended up happening. So we're ahead of the curve here. It's the right thing to do. But yes.
Yeah, we're not ahead of the curve. I got to speak to that. That's a bullshit comment on his part there. That Tampa is overrun with jihadis. And, you know, that's where CENTCOM, amongst other important installations, are. MacDill Air Force Base. That's a lie. That is a straight up lie. We are under assault in the state of Florida. We have a shit ton of mosques going up. We've had multiple instances. There was one in Orlando last weekend where a bunch of these third worlders, you know, went off on a bunch of Christians. We're not ahead of the curve. We're all in deep, deep shit. If we don't recognize the fact that we are under attack in the homeland, and if we keep up with this politically correct, inclusive bullshit, there will be nothing left of our country, including shit like this. It'll never fucking happen. Breaking: calls are mounting for Ugandan Mayor Zoran Mamdani to be deported. Rep Randy Fine says the third worlder lied on his immigration forms. Whoop-de-fucking-doodah. Nobody will do a fucking thing about it. Take the black pill, be done with it. Mamdani lied when he applied for citizenship. I think he was affiliated in supported groups you're not allowed to if you want to be a citizen of the United States. And I think he should be denaturalized and deported. You're fucking right, he should be, but it's never going to happen.
I would say to New Yorkers and Americans as a whole, when they tell you what they believe them. Mm-hmm. We're in this situation in New York because people said, oh, he really won't be that bad. Well, he's doing exactly what he told people that he would do. Mm-hmm. I believe Zoran Mamdani lied when he applied for citizenship. I think he was affiliated in supported groups you're not allowed to if you want to be a citizen of the United States. And I think he should be denaturalized and deported as a result.
He was installed. He was not voted in place. People got to get their heads wrapped around the fact that we haven't had legitimate elections since Woodrow Wilson, 1912. That piece of shit Wilson is the one who brought in whatever you want to call them, the cabal, the New World Order, whatever. Nobody in New York City voted for this piece of shit. He was installed just like Doc Pete, at the very least, tied Greg Abbott and didn't only get 10%. Wait till you see the shit that's fixing to come out on what Abbott and the rest of the WEF clowns pulled off in Texas to get him reelected. He was not legitimately reelected. We don't have legitimate elections. We have kabuki political theater that's complete bullshit. Yes, I am pissed the fuck off because people need to recognize the threat that we are under and to actually fucking do something about it. We have a bunch of spineless, selfish people and powers of control that are destroying our country. And if they're not destroying our country, they're facilitating the destruction of our country. You can call me Islamophobe, you can call me racist, you call me whatever the fuck you want. I get it in my inbox all the time. Bullshit. I'm a fucking proud American. I want my goddamn country back at the end of the day. And it's going to take hell to make that happen. And people better get that through their goddamn minds. Another example. U.S. Border Patrol agents caught 4 British nationals, right, who had illegally crossed into Maine from Canada in a remote area. The men were identified as Ali Muhammad Ali Abdullah, Hamid Muhammad Naji, Ibrahim Ayub Khan, and Muhammad Sultan. They're not fucking British nationals.
Nope.
Get it through your goddamn skull. This is an invasion. We are under attack. People better get it through their fucking skulls. We're going to end on this because I'm telling you what, I can feel my jugglers friggin' popping out the side of my neck. You can only take this shit for so much before you just blow a gasket and say, what the hell? This is total bullshit. I don't know if you want to add anything to it or not, Khalid. We beat this thing to it like a dead horse. You know what? We have got to get the American people to wake the fuck up and realize we are in the fight of our life for the greatest country to ever exist, and that the CIA is running a color revolution against us in cahoots with radical Islamic jihadis and every other shitbag out there. Carolyn Borchenko infiltrated an event last week. Khalid, don't quote me on this number. There was something like 50 fucking communist groups participating in it. I'm telling you. We have got to end the politically correctness, inclusive crap. We've got to exercise the laws that are on the books. We have got to get these sons of bitches out of America, or this is going to end really, really bad for everybody at the fucking table. If you want to add to that, go ahead, Khalid. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm fucking done. I'm done for tonight because I'm going to end up saying something I'm going to regret, and that might get me into trouble. So if you got anything,
Chris, you're absolutely right, Chris. I mean, look, we've beaten this horse over and over and over and over that you cannot come to a country and expect to bring the country you came from to that country. You came to that country because you wanted to take advantage of those opportunities, that culture, that lifestyle. If you love that country that you came from so much and you want to bring those and you want those values, you can keep them within the four walls of your house. You cannot bring them into your community. That's not what you were there for. That's not why you went to that country.
Wrong answer. If you came from another country and you're trying to change our country to wherever you came from, get the fuck out. Go back to
where I was headed.
Period.
That's where I was headed. Because look, inside the four walls of your house, you can have Sharia law. You can have whatever you want inside the four walls of your house. But as soon as you step outside, you are in America, you are in England, you are in France, you are in Germany. You abide by that culture and those laws. And if that's not what you want, buy a plane ticket, go back to the fucking country you came from. It's not something that I will compromise on. And I've said this over and over. I think I said this on the very first episode I was on with you guys on Survival Dispatch, that America needs to stop being so complacent and tolerating the political correctness bullshit of letting these people stay in the country and allow them to try and change the country that they are in. I don't understand why America cannot stand up and say, okay, you know what? This is our country. These are our laws. This is our culture. If you're not willing to accept it, get the fuck out. And it's very simple to do in every community. You know who these people are. Force them out. Stop letting them roam around. Stop letting them buy stuff. Stop letting them be in your cities. but stand up for America, for God's sakes, because the U.S. is headed in a direction that's 1,000 times worse than what England is right now. It's 1,000 times worse than what Ireland is right now. You have close to 20 million illegals and foreigners in the country that want nothing more than to change America.
We have 100 million non-citizens of the country. No less than 50 million of them are here illegally. Those are the real numbers, and you will see those numbers confirmed over time. It's huge. 100 million people in this country who do not belong in this country. Half of
That's
them.
a third of the U.S. population, Chris. That's a third of the U.S. population.
I know what it is, and I'm telling you, we are at war, and that's it. So there's a reason that all of the closing videos this week share the same theme. Read between the lines. I know as soon as I end this podcast, CommieTube's going to give me a fucking copyright infringement. But listen, we'll be back tomorrow evening, usual time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Next episode in our long war series. We're down to 13 episodes left in the whole 144 episode series that Clede and I wrote. And it's when jihadis shift from isolated to pattern. And we're looking for, escalation indicators. And last plug of the night, if you want real-time intel instead of guessing, if you want to stay connected when others get isolated, get inside the Survival Dispatch News Guardian Network, survivaldispatch.news. It's less than 33 cents a day. You will get content and information you'll get nowhere else. You will get fellowship that you will get nowhere else. And you will get security and privacy in your conversations like you will get nowhere else. Khalid, I appreciate you joining tonight. I'm telling you, I'm pissed off, buddy. I'm in an absolute pissy foul mood right now. But be safe over there, Khalid. Keep us posted on everything. God bless our law enforcement. God bless our military. God bless America.
God bless America.
Fuck everybody else. Enjoy the closing video.
From silence we arise, where the storm and shadow meet. The crown of light is calling through every scar and beat. The ground still tastes of battle, the air still hums with flame, and every heart still burning carries the ancient name. No demon nor darkness can hold us. For we are the righteous. The lion roars, fueling the flame. The lamb has taken our sin and shame. Raise up the saint, the warriors of the crown. Raise up the saint, we will not back down. Through fire and shadow, through storm and sound. Raise up the saints, we claim this, our holy ground. Yeah, our holy ground. Yeah. Serpent builds his towers from dust that cannot last. His glory fades to shadow beneath the trumpet blast. We are forged in mercy, stronger than steel. No fear can break us. We fight for his will. Banners blaze like lightning. Thunder shakes the ground. The fallen world is trembling. The saints will not be bound. Raise up the saints. The lion rises, the darkness shakes, the earth remembers every vow we make. Saints of old, warriors reborn from ashes and fire.